Hey everybody, we're live on YouTube. We're doing a podcast and election coverage and all sorts of craziness. Sam's in the room. You don't get to see him, suckos. But we're going to talk about some of the election stuff that's going on. I'm sure we'll get into some other stuff of that. But it is election night, and we're excited about it. Got a few people that are going to call in and check in and give us an update on what's going on in their neck of the woods. And yeah, we're going to do podcast stuff like we do podcast stuff all the time. So we're Almost in Agreement, almostinagreement@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostinagreement.com. While you're there, check out the Voter Guide 22. Wait, too late for that. Never mind. Just check out all the cool stuff we've got on there. It's got links to all the episodes. You can download them. You can share them from there. Or you can go to your favorite podcast provider and get all the episodes there. Like and share, friend and follow, all those sorts of things. Help us out, get the word out. Like I said, I got a few people that are going to call in and check in with what's going on with them. But we're live on YouTube. If you happen to check us out on the YouTube and want to ask a question or hit us up or whatever, just do it. Shoot a text or message us a question, and I probably won't know the answer, but I'll pretend like I do. So anyway, we're almost in agreement, everybody. We're going to do a thing. All right, so Sam's in the room with me. So I'm not talking completely to myself, even though for the handful of you that are watching, it'll look like I'm talking to myself because you can't see Sam. He wants to be secretive. So yeah, the polls just closed. It's about 8:24. And like I said, I got a couple people lined up, and so I'll be semi-distracted shooting some messages trying to get these people whom... Oh, shoot. I just forgot to hit the record button. All right. Whatever. All right. We'll just jump. I'll fix the front end from that later. So for the podcast people, shucks and dang. All right. So this is the cost of doing shit live. Anyway, for the podcast people, we just went live on YouTube, so it's a little weird that you didn't get the front end in, but I'll put the intro in and post. It's not that big a deal. Anyway, polling station just closed. I voted today. Sam, did you vote today?
I did not.
I knew the answer to that before I asked the question, but I asked it anyway.
Thanks for asking.
I mean, it took an hour today. It was weird. I've never taken that long to vote. I don't recall ever taking that long to vote. And so the question is, right off the tippy top, and we'll get some, because among the people I'm trying to get is Chris Davis to give me a call, what we're looking at total numbers-wise, because early voting was not good.
Really?
I want to say it was in the 60s, which for a race that, let's see here. I can't remember. The 2 years ago in the 2020 race, it was a 200,000 plus votes cast. Jesse was saying on their podcast that generally in recent history, these early votings become a little bit less than half of the total. Wow. So if we did 60 already, we're looking at doing like 130. But I say that, but while I was in line, when I finally got up to the guy giving me my actual ballot, I noticed on the little paper, so it's been a while for you to vote, but for everybody that votes, you get the little piece of paper. You put your name and address and you sign it. You go to the little thing, they verify your ID, make sure you're at the right place, and then you go over to the guy, hand it to him, and he hands you your official ballot. You go sit down, fill out the ballot, turn it in. Well, the guy that you hand it to has like a binder that every time you hand him one, he puts it in the binder. And so that's like a paper verification that this person already voted. So they're already marked off on the list over here. There is a piece of paper in this book over here. So if there's any question, there's a couple different levels of verification. But as he was doing it, he was counting on the back of them. So as I went up, it was like 661 was the person before me. When I handed it to him, I was like, what's the number? He's like, that's the count. He's like, so 662. And this was at 2:30 this afternoon. Which he said he worked my polling location for the August primary / county general, and that election had like about that 660-ish, 700 number all day. And so there's 5.5 hours of voting left, and they'd already done August, but they're going to beat August anyway. So when he said it, I was like, oh, that's pretty impressive. But then I was thinking about it for a second. I was like, nah, I mean, you should be beating the August one anyway, because most people don't realize what the August one is. The August one to me is the more important one, right? Especially including the primaries and all that kind of stuff. And so, as we were getting started, I got a message from WBIR that says the AP was reporting that Lee is keeping his governorship, which don't surprise me. But that one is That was I predicted that one. That one seemed pretty likely. The WBAR's listing of it. They only have what they call hot races. I think is what they call them, hot tickets. Which is the amendments and the governor. So 15 precincts have reported statewide, which that's the difference on the two lists that I'm going to be toggling back and forth for those that are watching. I've got the Knox County Election Commission list, which is only Knox County votes, versus the WBR list, which is the statewide version. And so as Knox County starts doing theirs, it'll add to that number. It's not. So that's statewide. And so I guess some counties close earlier than 7 Eastern or 7 Central. Statewide closes at 7 Central. So I don't know. Anyway, Governor Lee's.
I'd say it's up to each county to decide how long they want to extend.
I was thinking that too, but I was looking at it, and as I was looking through the WBIR stuff, it shows like it has all the ballots in all the states. So we got the Oz race in Pennsylvania and the Warnock, Herschel Walker race in Georgia and stuff like that. And it says on it, like, it has it broken down: states that polls close at 6, states that polls close at 7, states that polls close at 8. Tennessee's under the polls close at 8. Yeah. From the Gannett family of networks or whatever. And so, so anyways, as of right now, at least AP says Billy already won, which I called it. Not that was a tough one to call.
Right.
See, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, cause like I said, like, the what do they call it? The races to watch, which to me, this is in WBR's opinion of races that might be competitive, which I don't think the Sam McKenzie Pete Drew race is going to be competitive. I think Sam's going to run away with that one. I think the Kaplan Davis one is. I think Davis is still going to win it. House District 2, but District 90 is not on there, and I think that's a huge one. I think that one's the only one that I think. That's the only one that I think that there's a possibility that my guess of Gloria keeping the seat might be wrong.
Right.
I think everything else I'm right on, but we'll see as the night progresses. But yeah, anyway, I've got Matt Shears is supposed to call me here in a minute, as well as Daniel Herrera. I'm going to work on getting them on the line as we go through this even in. I don't want to do what I got to do right now. No, I don't. Okay, there it is. Doot. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm curious what the total is going to be. I'm curious how big this election is going to end up being, because a lot of people seem to feel like Election Day, because I heard a number of people talking about polling places being way busier than they're used to.
So I saw there was at least one polling place here in town that was having issues with.
Yeah, their printer went down or something.
Yeah, like printer's going out, or wasn't printing them dark enough, I think was what I read.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was frustrating to me about it is I was sitting there in line watching people read, sitting at the actual little booth, which is just a folding table with a cardboard divider. Here he is.
Over where
Mr. Matt.
Rocky Hill, too. So, and that's just and 2 points over in South Doyle.
Hey, don't make a phone call and don't listen to who you're talking to.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was talking to somebody else.
What's up, buddy? Matt Shears, everybody, the Knox County chair of the Democratic Party. I pulled some strings. I got him on. What's up, buddy? What's the feeling here?
Sorry, did you hear me talking about the numbers?
I just heard something about Rocky Hill, which I was one of those at least.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't have very many numbers in at all, but it looks like the preliminary numbers that we have. It looks like Greg is overperforming Debbie, Kat, and Annabelle in the precincts that overlap in those.
Okay, so.
Which is what he needs to be doing.
Right. I mean, that makes sense because they all lost, and he needs to do better than they did. I mean.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Kat won.
Right. Well, and of the set, other than Kat, what's like? How much does he need to outperform?
He probably needs to be anywhere from like 2.5 to 3. Right now on Election Day, again, we're just looking at certain precincts that have come in on Election Day. It looks like he's overperforming by about 2 points. That doesn't account for early voting.
Right. So Rocky,
there's a path for Greg, and that path is still open.
I get it. Okay, because. I ended up. I'll be honest with you. I ended up voting for Greg. I was going to write myself in, and I ended up taking Greg in the race.
Oh, really? Wow.
It was not my intent on the way in, and so I wrote myself in for governor instead.
Oh, really?
No, that's not. No, I wrote myself in
I
for.
wonder how many votes Constance will get.
I take that back. I wrote it. I did write in for governor, but it was not for.
Oh, okay.
It was not for me. I wrote in to Michael Williams.
Who's that?
He was the state Libertarian Party candidate, even though they didn't bother going through
Getting him on the
and
ballot.
getting him on the ballot, or maybe it was a protest thing. I don't know. I didn't hear.
Well, I've heard that they've already called the race for Billy.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, the WBIR from AP reported that like at 8:10, like it was early.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so I wrote in for the state's or the federal House seat too. I didn't vote for Burchett or Harmon.
Okay. What was that? So when you walked in, what was the deciding factor to go for Kaplan?
A little bit of what we talked about, what you and I talked about last night, as far as some of the issues that I wasn't really thinking about. Not that it necessarily matters. I'm still not super jacked and excited about Kaplan as my rep, but I mean, I guess if it's the
Well, I that last minute little statement from Eddie, I think that was
it didn't
I thought
hurt.
that was pretty interesting.
It didn't hurt. I liked
wonder
Eddie a
if
lot.
I think that could have got a couple votes, really.
I think I would say it probably contributed to mine as well, because I think the specificity of the combination of things that are going on in 18, with Eddie Manis being essentially thrown out because of the party, not because of anything else. Like, it was literally, I don't know how else to read that other than the party wanted him out and he didn't want to fight the party and campaign at the same time.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know,
I wouldn't want to do that.
And for me, who liked him as my rep, and I'm disappointed that I understand.
You should make him a co-host now. He's got extra time.
that he's lying, and I don't want a liar on my show. Because his reason for stepping aside was time issues, not because he didn't pitch a fit about the party except for that Kaplan thing. For the most part, he said,
I
decided.
think we all knew it was part of it.
I've decided to focus on my business and take care of all my business needs and stuff like that, and talking about coming out of pandemic as a business owner and stuff like that, which I get, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like, I'm curious. I think 18 and 90 are the only two that have the possibility to not go as the predetermined.
80 and what?
18 and 90. I think Kaplan can. I think Kaplan can upset the quote Republicanness that is the history of 18. But I think with this new 90 and some of the different stuff, I don't know. You know the depths of 90 more than I do, as far as the precinct activity. But I mean,
the big question mark there is that it's a lot of people that aren't used to voting for Gloria. But I think she's done a good job of getting out there and getting her name out there and talking to people. So I mean, we haven't looked at the specific of the results coming in for that, but. I think at the end of the night she'll carry it through.
I think that's my prediction as well. But like in my prediction show last week.
Hey, thanks for driving today. Thank you.
In my prediction for last week, it was I think Gloria's going to take it, but I could see just some of the weird old schoolness popping out on that one and maybe denying Gloria 90. But yeah, I don't think we're anything surprises. What are your thoughts on the amendments?
I think they'll all fail.
I think so too. I think
that people don't understand them. I think there wasn't that much information about them, and I think that they'll all just fail.
I think right. I don't think any of them will pass threshold. I think enough people have skipped it that it doesn't pass the gubernatorial race threshold.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Although I will say that part of the reason why I sat in line for an hour, I was actually just joking with Sam about this before you called. Is sitting in line for an hour watching people read.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't.
That's probably why part of it took so long too.
I can't I can't tell you how many people I saw sit and reading the totality of the ballot, and it's like, I don't know.
It's hard to understand when you read it one time too. Then you got to read it again.
Yeah. And I went in there. I mean, the guy that was in front of me in line, I ended up sitting next to. And I sat down, did my ballot, and was up before he had finished his, and he was ahead of me. And I don't know if he read it or not. I'm like, it was kind of fun making jokes with people because I actually understood what I was doing. Like the guy in line that was talking about how much turnout there was. I was like, yeah, everybody's really really jazzed up to make sure that we have a succession plan in case the governor gets hurt but doesn't die. And so, but yeah, I just don't think it's going to pass
You're not
that
supposed
COVID
to be
threshold.
lobbying for votes inside.
I wasn't lobbying. I was saying
Yeah.
that this is why everybody's here.
Explaining. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I just think I just don't think it's going to pass the threshold of like I think one's dead. Period. There's no way, even if there are enough total votes in it, there's no way that over half of the governor's race is going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I just think that one there will be enough actual no's to keep
I think
it out.
the way that they've just set up how it has to pass, that it means that nothing's going to pass.
Right. Like yeah.
I don't know the history of why they wrote it that way.
I mean, I think it's supposed to be hard. I think that's the
Yeah.
point. Like it shouldn't be something that we willy-nilly change on
Mhm.
silly pointlessness, which I think makes sense for one, being the complication of it, but for 2, 3, and 4 more being like kind of administrative adjustments, it makes it hard to get those little ones fixed because like 4 is pointless.
Yeah, I mean, if it's been ruled unconstitutional, why not just take it out?
Because they have to. It has to go through the process, even though it doesn't have any effect.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do anything. I mean, really, if any of them passed, nothing would change.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. But it just
Even
cleans it up.
even Amendment 1.
Right. And I've said on the show a bunch of times, I think it's inappropriate for this legislative body to make that decision for future ones.
Well, it looks like we're getting some more results coming in, so I'm going to need to go talk to Jack. But overall, like I said, I think that there is a path for Greg tonight, and it depends on a couple different factors, but one of which is he needs to be outperforming Debbie, Kat, and Annabelle. And so we will see if that trend continues or not on election day, and then early vote, and then absentees as well too.
Yeah, I'm waiting for some of because the early and absentee should be popping in pretty soon. They usually don't take that long.
Probably. All right, any parting questions? I got to head out here in a bit.
Sam, you got anything before we get him out?
Nothing specific.
Nothing specific.
Oh,
No.
hey, it's my buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, man?
All right, good talking with you. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, shoot me a note when you hear anything on 90. I'm curious what
right.
you're hearing on that.
All right, got it. Bye.
Thanks, Matt. Cool, Matt. Cheers, everybody. Like I said, he was doing his thing. So that's the path for Kaplan. If that made any sense, did that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a no duh. You have to do better than the people that ran inside the same precincts who lost to win. And so, but I don't know. At least maybe here, it's not what I think I heard as I picked up was that he outperformed Rocky Hill for sure. And so my neighborhood
Outperformed their expectations of Rocky Hill so far?
outperformed the previous people. So
Okay.
other people that ran as Democrats
Gotcha.
whose poll at this precinct didn't do. He's doing better than them. Which Cat Bike did win. So if he's outperforming her, most of District 4 is in 18, and so, but District 18 is bigger than District 4 in the school board, and so. We have to see what these other ones, because 18 now goes down to the south side and does south of the river, southwest Knox County. So that little stretch between the river and the Blount County line is all 18 now, until you get to like Chapman. I think it changes over to Chapman to 13 or 15 or whatever now. Which that precinct, apparently those precincts down there are pretty hard red and very rarely vote anything but red. And so it's a balance game. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll start seeing some results start coming out
We shall see.
to get some more on that. So let me see if I can get Herrera to answer. But yeah, I think it's I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if they do like every half hour or something. They kind of release batches of info.
I don't know. I think because like I said, like usually the
Hi, this is the Google Assistant.
oh, he's
Can
got
I
a
ask
Google
what
it.
you're calling about?
Checking in on election results.
All right, hang on while I try to reach them.
Daniel, you're such a badass. You got an assistant and everything.
Hey, somebody wants to call you and ask you about election results.
All right, don't make me get Daddy Randy on you. I'll call Randy Pace and have him get on the phone with you. So
Assuming you already reached out to him. and he's
yeah,
like,
I
"Hey, you can
talked to
call."
everybody.
I was about to say, like, you're trying to call him on election night.
All right, we'll try again, Daniel. Sorry. All right, we'll call back. I'll call either he'll call me back or I'll call him again in a minute. We'll check it. I'm trying to get Pierce Davis to see what he thinks about total numbers. I'm a little like I'm a little shocked at the lines. Like I think it's I don't quite understand why it was running so much slower this time around than it was in previous times. Because even like the 2020 election where you had again the biggest turnout we've had in forever and ever.
As far as numbers coming in?
No, as far as how long it took me to go through the line. Like
Gotcha.
2020 for the Trump Biden race, which again is the biggest ballot that's ever been in Knox County as far as turnout goes.
Do you remember if they had around the same amount of, I guess, workers in there?
I mean, yeah, to my recollection, they always had the same people there. Like, and apparently it's like the same people, but it's like, you have 2 or 3 people that are in the little first section where you sign a little mini piece of paper and take that over to the big book person. And the big book person is like A through D and then E through J and like that. And that's always the same number of people because it's each book. And then there's 1 or 2 people at the printing station. There's one guy at the scanner where you actually put the ballot in and it scans it, and he hands you your sticker, which I already lost my sticker. I didn't even get a picture with my sticker. I already have 2 stickers of 2 picture stickers this year, so I don't need a third. I'm okay.
I'm being disappointed. It was like probably a good 10 years or so ago. Don't remember. Maybe it was 08. Went to go vote. Went to the nearest. I should have double checked before I went, but didn't look to verify my actual precinct. I knew a couple places where they were having it at, and I assumed that the places closest to me was my polling place.
Right.
Went all the way down to the elementary school and was literally like the second person in line to actually walk up to the booth or whatever and vote. And they were like, "Oh, sorry, you got to go to this other elementary school. Go over there." And probably had to go to an hour and a half long wait. It's like, wait, what the fuck? I was like, why is everybody over at this one? But nobody was over at the other one that I was just at.
Right. I mean, it just depends on the precinct. It depends on the people that live there and whatever. Scott from Compass is going to call me here in a minute too, so we'll see what he would like to say.
What's the word on the street?
I don't know where he is. Like usually, Jesse's on the Triple H show. They're doing a special election night thing on 98.7 or whatever, and Jesse's sitting in for part of that or all of that. Normally, they were telling me that one goes to wherever the Democrats are having their like headquarters and election party,
right,
and the other one goes to the Republican version of it. Is their normal MO, which I'll ask Scott if when he calls.
He's running back and forth between the two.
Whether he's and so, but I mean, okay. Anyway, I agree. I think that was actually my prediction on the last episode when I was doing my predictions. I agree with Matt. I don't think any of these amendments are going to pass, just because of the threshold issue, not because I think 2, 3, and 4 will get a majority yeses. I think 1 will actually not even pass in percentage of the total votes on it, but the sum isn't going to be there. Scott, buddy, what's up?
Hello, Seth.
Scott, how are you tonight? Where are you at tonight?
I am in the lobby of the Crown Plaza downtown.
Who, the Republicans are at the Crown Plaza?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just got off the phone with Matt Shears. He was talking about some action out here in my neighborhood. Apparently, Mr. Kaplan is outperforming some of the August Democrats, at least in my Rocky Hill precinct, on early indications. And so for this section, at least, I like for District 18, which to me is the, like, and I think it was what you guys talked about on your show too, is like 18 is the one with the vitriol, but 2 seems to be the most likely, if any, upsets occur. It's probably going to be 18.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
I don't think it's going to upset personally. I went through this last time. I was thinking about it after you guys talked about it on the show, and then talked to some other people about it. Like, I remember specifically this same conversation, the same feeling was what everybody was talking about going into the Manus couch race. And then Manus kind of took it running away. But I think, as you mentioned, I don't think Elaine Davis is quite the candidate as Manus was as far as electability.
Well, and one thing about it is Manus won, but he had the smallest victory margin of any of the Republican legislators who won.
Right.
So,
but the question, go ahead.
Well, in a lot of, I don't know about a lot, but there are people who supported Manus in 2020 who are either supporting Kaplan or not supporting Davis, however you want to couch
Right.
that. And so I mean, it could, I'm not going to predict anything.
I will.
I'm terrible at predictions, but it is the one state house race I think that could be a surprise.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Because I mean, I think it goes the other way too. Though I think there were people that would not vote for Maness that didn't vote for Maness 2 years ago that will vote for Elaine Davis tonight.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
so
that's one of the reasons you can't. One of the reasons you can't make predictions. At least I can't.
Right. Well, you can. You just whether you're accurate or not is really the question. Because I think to me, and so I was telling Matt too. I think this would be the least surprising if it did upset, but I still think it would be fairly. I would be fairly surprised if it did upset. I think District 18 for now is at least solidly right enough that despite Elaine Davis's, what's the word I'm looking for here? Cringiness. I think she'll still hold. I think she'll still take that seat. But
well, I mean, one thing about the the one thing that this campaign was marked by a lot of vitriol, especially toward the end. A lot of negative campaigning, especially the state Democratic or state Republican Party.
Yeah.
Paid for mailers and ads and all that were pretty vicious toward Kaplan. I think that tells you two things. Like, A, that it tells you that the Republican Party is concerned about that seat, because they didn't do that in the 14th district, which is southwest Knox County,
right?
Because that's fairly safe.
And I think though too, if I think back on it,
also is if Elaine Davis wins, I think it also shows that negative campaigning. Especially when it's aimed toward your, people who are sympathetic towards you can work.
Right. So. Well, because I'm thinking back on it though, is like, I think that there was some pretty nasty stuff that came out of either a PAC or a non-direct campaign action back in the Maness Couch one that was a lot about like the silly friends one, it's not dissimilar to the you know a lot about a person by who their friends are kind of stuff. I remember some of those on the Couch thing. Well, Couch voted for Obama, and those style flyers in that Couch race too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's that is a it's a common tactic to go ahead to, especially when in an area like East Tennessee, Knox County, where there's Republicans are pretty much in I don't want to say control, but I mean when they do win most of the races, attacking the Democrats by connecting them with national figures that the local electorate doesn't necessarily care for is common. It's
right.
It's always there.
And especially when you have a midterm with a current president that's not particularly popular anyway, it's an easy it's an easy dunk, for lack of a better word. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So anyway, down here at Camp Republicana, what's the word on the street? What are you hearing? What are the mumbles?
Well, to tell you the truth, full disclosure, I just walked in the door.
No. It's a little early yet. Well, when you see Daniel, tell him to call me. He promised.
Okay, I'll tell him. But no, the returns haven't started coming in yet. So, and even once they do, and the lines were really long today. I'm sure you've already been talking about that.
Yeah, and I was confused by that, but I'm trying to get Chris to come on.
Well, good luck with that. He's a little busy tonight.
Yeah, I know. I called him earlier. I texted him earlier, and he said he would try if he's not too busy. So I took that as a probably not.
Yeah.
Well, WBIR is starting to show some results. All four amendments have got yeses quite strong. I don't know if they're going to hit the threshold though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't know that. Yeah, I haven't. The last time I checked before I walked in the door, the returns hadn't come in. Those would be the early voting and the statewide. Oh,
right. That's I'm assuming the WBR is pulling the statewide, not the county only.
Okay.
Because I was just thinking about it. I was like, yeah, they're showing 230,000 ballots
Yeah.
at 2% reporting. Yeah, that's statewide.
Yeah, well, here, of course, if you're still in, whoever's in line at 8 o'clock
Right.
can still vote. So, I mean, there may still be people casting ballots now in some of these precincts because they were really, really packed. I didn't vote early. I voted on election day most of the time, and I did today. And my precinct had a line out the door, and that I've never seen that happen.
Oh yeah, I was talking to people online. I was like, it's a good thing it's a good weather day. It would have been real bad if we were getting rained on, because we were outside for probably 15 minutes before we got inside, and then it zigzagged through the gym, and we finally got up there. Which I don't like. What are your thoughts on that? Like, where did that come from? Like, it wasn't a particularly long ballot. It was a little bit of reading, especially with Amendment 2, but like we've talked about it a couple times already tonight. Like, I voted in the 2020 presidential, which was the largest electorate turnout in the state of Tennessee or in Knox County history. And I remember getting in and out in like 15, 20 minutes. So is there any...
Well,
Go ahead.
one thing is, I think, and this was kind of a nationwide thing, is that a lot of Republicans weren't going to vote until Election Day because there was one of those conspiracy theories that if you vote on Election Day, it doesn't give hackers time to change votes in machines or something like that. I don't know but that could be a theory. Another could just be that early voting's off a little bit because 2 years ago we had COVID,
Right.
and so that got people voting early and voting by absentee. So I don't know what the explanation is yet. Don't know what the numbers are yet either.
Right. Well, because I was talking to one of the guys in the guy running the printer in my polling station, and I noticed that on the little form, as he was putting them in the binder, he was writing the numbers on the back, and that was the count. And so at like 2:30, 3 o'clock, well, I went at about 2:15. By the time I got up there, it was like 3:15, and I was 662. Which, at least to his recollection, because he worked that same polling station back in the August primary county general, and he said they did 662. They did about 700 or something like that all day in the August.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. At first I was like, whoa, that's crazy that they got this much this early. And then I was thinking about it for a second. It's like, no, traditionally you're going to get more turnout in this November one. Even though to me it's less important because I think the August general is more important personally.
Well, the August general is important for county government.
Right.
This is more important for state government.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And so, okay. Well, I mean, if there's I don't know, what is there anything that you feel like's going on that's worth talking about, or are we just kind of wait and see mode right now?
Well, right now we are more or less in wait and see mode. Until the numbers start coming in and we get some kind of idea. And one of the things too is in many past elections, you could take the early vote and pretty much, the election day vote followed early voting vote. So, if somebody got 55% of the vote early voting, they'd get about 55% of the election day vote. With the turnout being as high as it is today, anecdotally, as
Right.
high as it is today, that might be that rule of thumb might be out the window.
Right. I was thinking about that because you guys had talked about it on your show this week about, traditionally, at least to your guys' recollection, Knoxville doesn't seem to have that dynamic that at least is discussed in the national politics part of who votes early versus who votes day of. But
Yeah.
we might be in a different boat here just because I don't know. I'm curious what the total number is going to be. Do you recall off the top of your head what our comparable 18 was approximately total?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, I'll go. I'm on the election commission website.
I don't trust the top of my head.
Fair enough. I mean, you let it lets Alabama hats go on it, so there is something wrong with it. Well, all right, Scott. I'll let you get back to work. Me and Sam will chat some other stuff while we're waiting for results. If anything crazy happens and you wanna let me know, I'll take that. I'll take that breaking news.
All right. Well, that sounds good. Make sure your listeners know that they can keep up with the Knox County politics.
How dare you plug on my show? Yes, Compass Knox, CompassKnox.com and or the Compass Point podcast, which there's a great producer of that show. I don't know who he is, but he does a really good job keeping these two
Our
crazies in
producer-
line.
Our producer of our podcast is the best podcast producer I've ever worked with.
That's that. I will pretend like you've worked with a bunch, so it makes me feel better about myself, even though I know that's not the truth. Well, I've got into my birthday whiskey from you guys, and I appreciate that. And anyway, have a great night, Scott. Like I said, give me a shout if anything crazy happens.
Okay, will do. Thanks,
All right,
Seth.
Thanks, buddy. Interesting stuff.
Always.
It's fun to know. Like it's fun knowing people. It really is. Like I'm a dork. I'm
I
such
mean,
a
it's
dork
cool. You
about it.
had someone that was right there in the headquarters. You're like, hey, what's going on down there?
Yeah. You know, like I've ever.
Full on, like newscast. We're gonna go to our satellite reporter out there on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something. Honestly, I think that's something the Compass guys are working towards. Not so much in the live thing, like I'm doing right now, but more in the sense of like the
You could have like a wheelhouse of like
more
experts you
people
can call.
around, so they could take different parts of different stories and assign them to different people, so they can get different outlooks on stuff. I think that's one of the they would like to grow into that, to have a couple of staffers at least, so it's not just them. I mean, hell, like Scott's 58, 57, something like that. I mean, he's got to be at least thinking about retirement at some point. Jesse is a few years younger at like 53, but you know, getting off of being field reporter and letting him more be editor and publisher, I think is probably
Right.
something that they're thinking about. So if they can get a couple of staffers,
A little less legwork and more
yeah,
editorials.
yeah, and then more, but especially more like condensing it into, you know, so getting a lot of different information from a lot of different places, but not having to be the one to go out there
Right.
and go out there and do all the phone calls. But I mean, I don't know. I think there's part of it that's the fun. Like I get people as low key and dumb as we are. I get people that'll text and call me and be like, "Hey, did you hear about this?" Like Reginald Jackson, he ran for school board. Do you remember that guy?
Off the top of my head.
It's been a couple weeks ago. I wasn't sure exactly what the story is that he was trying to get me to kind of jump on, but apparently Knox County School security bought like 30 cars. But like by design, the security guys aren't supposed to leave. They don't leave campus when they're there. And so it's like, what's the point of these cars? It's not like they're going to, like, what are they going to do with the cars for the work part of it? Sure, it'd be a handy thing to maybe be a sales pitch to get you more security people so they can drive to and from work with it, which essentially means you're just buying them a car to go
All right.
from their house to the school.
I don't know if it's also just like a visual deterrent of having a cruiser out front as well.
Yeah, but these don't look nearly as much like sheriff's cars as their uniforms look like sheriff's uniforms.
True.
But yeah, it was a while ago he messaged me that. But I mean, I get that. Constance will send me stuff every once in a while. Tyler likes to send me stuff. I think I like Tyler a lot, but I think he's burned a bunch of bridges with the way he goes about his efforts.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people ignore him because, like, I mean, like his whole thing with Chief Noel, like I get it, like I understand what he's after, but he went when Chief Noel first got here, he was doing a bunch of like little town hall meet and greets, just hanging out, talking to people, introducing himself, trying to get to know. Because if you're that guy, the people that are going to show up at this thing are the active people.
Right.
They're like, oh, the new chief's, hanging out, taking questions.
Right.
And so he goes to it, brings his camera, which is fine from the get-go, at least. And he says, hey, just got some questions about some different things. What are your thoughts on some of the stuff that's been happening at this police department? Chief Noel very politely is like, there's a lot of stuff I still got to link to, but I'm not doing interviews right now. This is not a camera time. And so like Tyler's like, okay. And so they walk around behind the camera. And as they walk around, Tyler takes the camera and turns it around to where they're now standing. And Chief Noel's like, I told you I'm not doing this on camera right now. And walked away. And then Tyler kind of goes, so you don't want to answer the question? And it's like, well, Tyler, he told you very clearly. Right. He also said in that very clearly that he would be happy to do an on-camera interview with you at some point, just not right now.
Right.
And it's like I understand that you have a point to get across, but you're not even giving him a chance. You're already in that adversarial mode. It's like, dude, take a breath. Right. Take the interview. If he offered an interview, take it. Schedule it. Sit down with him somewhere. Bring him here. I'll host it for you if you want me to. I'll take the chance on getting Chief Noel in. Double time it. Like Tyler can do one, I can do
You
one.
make that bad first impression, you're automatically on the
Right.
blacklist.
Right. So now anytime Tyler walks in the room, I'm
Like,
sure.
oh, what's your name? You turn to your assistant like, okay, make sure that guy's not ever on a list.
Right. I'm saying like, or you're doing a thing and Tyler walks in the room, you're just gonna be like, I'm done. I'm not.
Right.
You know, when he starts walking over to you about to ask a question, like, nah, I will avoid you at all costs. And so, yeah. So we'll see. I'm not looking. I'm not anticipating many surprises tonight. I don't see. I just don't see it. I think Lafferty keeps his seat. I think Zachary keeps his seat. I think Sam keeps his seat. Carringer is automatically keeping her seat.
Right.
What's his face in Senate 5? The lieutenant governor.
Oh, McNally.
McNally, he's keeping his seat. I think Briggs is keeping his seat. The only one I'd have no idea on, I think it's like this 16 that's actually coming up on the scroll right now because I don't know any of the people. I think it's Pete Drew is that's the guy running. Apparently Pete Drew runs for something every time there's an election.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, where's an open spot? Okay,
Right.
yeah. Put
It's
me
like,
in.
am I eligible for this? I'm running.
Do I need to buy some property in that precinct? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Have you been paying attention to any of the national races at all? Do you have any thoughts on any of the national ones? I have a hard time.
I haven't seen any kind of polling, I guess.
Yeah. I this one, Dave Wright, 19. Dave Wright, Zeke Streetman, and Marianne Rochette. I think Dave Wright currently holds the seat. And so I'm going to go with Dave Wright keeps the seat. Because I've heard no coverage on any of them. Now, to be fair, I haven't gone to the Compass page because I know they did a profile on each of them. But, to me, like, I don't know. To me, like, the Lafferty, is it Lafferty or Zachary is the one that's buddy-buddy with Mary Jacobs? Or both.
I would guess Zachary.
Probably both, but, like, I can't, this Vandy thing bothers me. Like, the more I think about it, the more it bothers me.
Vandy thing?
Yeah, Vandy had a, I don't know what the title of it was, but it's a trans clinic that was inside of Vandy. So one of the very few places in the state. And they did work for minors, which we've talked about this before. I'm not a big fan of the idea of transitioning either chemically or physically or hormonally or surgically. I'm not a fan of it for kids. I don't think it's a good idea. But I can't tell a kid or his parents or the combination of them two that they can't do that. That's not, I can't wrap my hand around that part of it. So I don't like the idea that the thing exists, but it is not, I don't believe I have the right to tell them they can't. That's how I stand on it. But Zachary and they're like, it was like 30 or 40 something state legislators wrote a letter to Vandy, and Vandy has since shut the clinic down.
Right. Okay.
Basically under threat that the state is going to make it illegal for what they were doing anyway. And so maybe in an attempt to try to keep it from getting actually legislated, they just went ahead and shut it down, hoping that the state doesn't write any law on it. And so maybe as the body changes around a little bit, they can go back to doing what they're doing. But again, like the Zachary part, the problem I have with the Zachary part of it is Zachary he has been running on parents' choice for schools, parents' rights,
Right. But
not in this one.
Right.
I want you to make the choice because you're the parent, except for this thing. I'm going to make that choice for you. And it's like, how do you justify that thought process? Like, I think that's one of the problems I have in general. That's one of the problems I have in politics in general, in governance in general, is this idea that I'm allowed to make this decision for you. And that's core libertarianism to me. Is at the end of the day, I'm not allowed to make that decision for you. I can't imagine a thing that I'm allowed to make a decision for you on. I don't know. I'm sure there's some examples. And but again, it goes into like we've had age of consent conversations or age of relevancy or whatever, like all the different, like how old should you be to do X? Should you be 16 to drive, 18 to drive, 18 to smoke, 21 to smoke, 18 for military service, all those things. Like the libertarian problem I have with that one is it doesn't make any sense. It's an arbitrary number where you just pick and choose. And I think it's weird that you could be mature enough for one thing but not another. I think that just makes it like it should at least be a consistent number. But even in that, I have a hard time rationalizing that because at the end of the day, we as a society are picking for you what you can and can't do with your life. And that doesn't make sense to me. Ever. Yeah, ever. Because the only exception to be that is like, well, then you're saying that you're allowed to kill people because you're not allowed to tell them not to. It's like, well, yeah, but they're not allowed to kill you because that's choosing for you whether you're allowed to live. So that doesn't make any sense either.
So in your logic, you can't you shouldn't even be able to tell that person you can't kill people.
Right, because it is implied in the idea of liberty that you can't kill somebody because you are taking liberty away from somebody else. In the same way that me telling you when you're 18 that you're not allowed to smoke, but you are when you're 21, I'm taking liberty away from you by saying that you're not old enough. Well, by killing you, I'm taking liberty away from you for anything you wanted to do. And that's where that's a struggle that I have in the conversation. Your liberty ends at somebody else's beginning. You can't. What is the old saying? It's like your freedom ends where your fist ends and my nose begins, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm a fairly firm believer in the general premise of that.
I was surprised how many just straight independents that were listed for governor.
Oh yeah, there's like 10.
It was like one Republican, one Democrat, like 8 independents.
Yeah. Which essentially all they do is hamstring each other. But that's all that's going to happen. None of them have any and even that I wrote in a guy because he didn't even bother getting on the ballot as an independent. And so I'll be curious what his total is in a write-in campaign in the state.
At least one.
Yeah, I mean hopefully 2. Hopefully he voted for himself.
Hopefully.
But yeah, it was weird. Like I'm curious. I really hope that Chris can find a couple minutes to call because I'm really curious what the thought process is on why it was so slow today. And it's not so slow.
I doubt that he'll have much insight on it either.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have something because again, like you said, one of the stations the computer went down for a while, which that's a problem in and of itself. I mean, basically, you had people in line that's just like, well, you're gonna have to wait.
I'm trying to remember which one they said it was.
I thought it was Carnes or Hardin Valley was the voting location.
I think it was one that was at a church, possibly.
Something Baptist, yeah.
See if I can.
One of the polling centers had some sweet old ladies that made cakes, and you could get a cake after you voted.
What?
Oh, did you? You didn't listen to the episode last week, did you? Of course not.
Nope.
All right, so
Just one you did all by yourself.
Yeah, my good friend Brian. I'm curious your thoughts. So, let me not preface this with a bunch of bullshit. Let me try to stay on task. What would your definition of voter intimidation be? Where's the line between supporting your candidate and intimidating other voters?
Are you insinuating what was going on in Arizona?
That was the start of the conversation that I was commenting on last week's show. Yes,
I would consider that voter intimidation.
I could get on board with that. I don't know.
I would definitely be a little freaked out if I show up to even if it's just a drop box.
There's a bunch of people
I
with
see
guns.
some guys in like body armor, face masks.
Yeah, that would be. I could agree with that one, and I'd be curious.
Like, is this like SWAT getting ready to go down? Like,
well, there's a couple questions I have on that though, and I don't know. I didn't follow the Arizona story. Like, what is the Arizona law on gun carry? Like, are they legally carrying their guns? I would assume, obviously, or they would have been arrested for an open carry or.
I think a judge did come down and said they were fine to do that, but I guess they were within a certain perimeter. I don't know if they extended it or more like re-emphasizing. They're like, hey, if you're near a drop box, you have to stay at least 100 feet away. And some of them were even like going so far. I don't know how many occurrences. It at least happened more than once, where some of these people that were quote unquote poll watchers were taking their cell phone video and like videoing the people as they were dropping them off, and then like following them out to their cars and filming their license plates.
It's a public space.
It's a public space.
I mean, I'm not. This is not. I don't like that that's happening.
Right.
I don't like that at all. But the definition. I mean, the police could. Whether it's a drop box or anything else, the police can. If you're walking down a sidewalk, the police can video camera you and follow you to your car and take an image of your license plate and stuff as you get in your car. I could do that. Anybody can do that anytime if it's a public place.
Technically, yes.
I'm not advocating for this activity to go on around polling locations. I'm just trying to suss out some of the details of it because I didn't go and read any specific stories about it.
I mean, following someone like that with your phone, I don't know the exact like language in like a stalking law, but I mean that could be considered stalking as well.
I doubt it.
I guess it depends on how long you were following that person.
Yeah.
I mean, if you followed them for like 5 or 10 minutes as they were walking a couple blocks away, and you just kept videotaping them, went out to the car.
I mean, as I understand it, like, you know, if you're, as long as you're on public or even private property that is publicly accessible, unless the owner of the private property tells you to stop, it's within your rights to video camera anybody anywhere. I mean, that's certainly the state's argument for some of the stuff that they do all the time. So I don't see how it doesn't apply to me or you. And to be fair,
But because law enforcement can do it, anybody should be able to do it.
we've done this 1,000 times. You want to go down this one again? You know my answer to that question.
Yeah, I know. You want tanks just like the Army has it too.
Yeah, I do. I want to be able to own a tank.
If our armed forces
And not tell
get
anybody.
to have it, anyone
And
should
not
be able
and not even fill out any paperwork to tell anybody that I want to own a tank, and therefore do own a tank.
That makes
That
complete.
if I have private land, that I can bring my private toy on my private land and play with my private toy on my private land.
Yeah.
Now to take it
Is
on a
there-
public
is there a-
road,
Is there a line
could-
anywhere?
I mean, to take it on a public road that could do damage, I could see that requiring a permit or something like that.
It's not to have it, just to drive it on a public road.
Yeah.
Should we have registration to drive a car on a public road?
I mean, we do.
That wasn't my question. Do you think we should?
I can understand the logic behind having a fee system in order to maintain roads. If that's how we actually use the money, I would appreciate it if that's how we did it. But I can understand the premise of saying, for the privilege of using the roads that we build, you need to do some paperwork that includes putting money up to help us keep these roads up and or build new roads and maintain the roads that we have, etc. I could follow that. I could see that as a collective, as a way to go to a collective good reasonably, which I'm concerned about.
Well, I think registration more protects someone from stealing your car and trying to claim it as theirs. Because without that registration, nothing else ties you to that car outside of you having the title. But how many people have their car paid off where they have title in hand?
I mean,
Not that many people have
The-
a way
the-
to prove that literally that
I mean, if the bank owns
that
the car,
part of property is theirs.
if the bank owns the car, which who would hold the title if you have a loan,
Right.
They know who's paying the loan, and I would say that they would protect that asset for their client in the same sense. We've done this before
Yeah,
too.
but I mean,
I absolutely disagree that there's any point to.
In an instance, you know, at this time of night, you know, you and somebody else are arguing over whose car that is. You can't call the bank now for have them verify.
Okay.
So how else does that police officer that's trying to make a decision right then and there, how does he determine whose car it is and whose car it isn't without that registration?
I mean, I would say
you're gonna
I could
say,
produce.
At 8 o'clock, I can figure this out for you guys. So
I mean, I can show you. I can log into my loan payment portal and show you where I pay for that car.
yeah, I guess it may tie it to a certain vehicle. As far as
I
your
could
loan.
show you
don't
my
know if it would
car
just
ins-
show you as you owe that.
I mean, I
bank
could
a
show
loan.
you the car insurance that I'm required to carry to drive that car in public places. I can show you my car insurance that proves that, I mean, to the VIN number,
Right.
that I have insurance to drive that car. Now, that does not necessarily mean I own the car. Now, if you were in some weird situation where both people that are saying that's my car have insurance on that car with the VIN number, sure, we get some
They
complicated.
call the general real quick. They're like, "Hey, I need to insure this car." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, while the police are there filling out paperwork.
Can you go and send me an email real quick? This verifies it.
I mean, I guess somebody could.
True.
But, yeah, hold on a second, officer, as you sneak up to the car and take a picture of the VIN number real quick so you can read it off to the guy over the phone to keep your thing happy. I mean, again, I don't, like, I acknowledge the collective good that is the roadways, and I acknowledge that registration is a good way to collect funds to help maintain and grow the infrastructure. I acknowledge that as a thing. Was that a work
You
one?
acknowledge that it exists as a thing.
I do. I acknowledge it as a. The fuck is that? But I mean, I could get behind the premise of why that exists.
Yeah.
To should or should not is not the place I would put that on. Like, to me, if I'm going to go like hardcore libertarian on it, which I don't think I am a hardcore libertarian, but the hardcore libertarian says all roadways should be private, and the owner of the roadway can charge fee however he wishes on how to keep up and maintain with it. But I see
I mean, Do you think that's feasible?
Feasible?
That concept. Of
I mean-
the entire U.S., all of our roadways being private.
I think it would be very difficult to function in a system that way. I acknowledge that as a thing, which is
Like,
again one of the reasons
I just
why.
paid the Smith toll, and I got to pay the Jones toll, and
I mean, I don't know, but think about it in like a more. I mean, I would certainly think that there would the infrastructure as it grew in the way it grows its things that there would like especially in the digital age that there would be easy ways to do it. like which I think I find this really weird in Florida, the Sun Toll Road or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no booths, there's no stations. You just drive on the road and they take a picture of your license plate.
No.
Okay, well the one that I went on to get to Disney, it just says drive. And we will send you a bill in the mail.
right, I think Watt Road's got things like that, where it almost kind of looks like one of the large old school like cameras, but it's like up over the interstate.
Right, that's like an RFID reader for the trucks.
Right.
But I'm talking about like an
I think
actual.
it's for them to like okay them, I guess, bypassing the way station, or I guess they can put in there like, hey, I stopped at a way station not too
Yeah,
far back.
I don't know. That's the fast pass for trucks. So I'm talking about the actual Florida toll road,
Right, I know what you're talking
not
about.
the interstates, the toll road. The one that we went on that was from, I guess it was from 75 into Orlando.
Yeah. I think more and more are digital, but there are actual like booths.
But I mean,
Some of them are unmanned where they just got that basket and you got to throw like $1.25 in quarters.
right. Well, the problem is it's not like $3.50 a mile or something ridiculous like that, and so to have all that in quarters is a lot to do. But my point is that they take a picture of your license plate and send you a bill. So that means that this private company that owns the toll road has access to the national license plate database. Because they take a picture.
Right.
Probably the computer does all the work for them, and it says Tennessee plate X, W526, whatever.
I don't know if they would necessarily have access. Maybe they were able to put in a request to that particular state as an official. I'm assuming they've got some kind of official, quote unquote, kind of body clearance. But send them like an email
I mean,
like
that's
every day. Hey, we need contact on this, and this, or whatever.
I mean, what is and so does each state verify that the person who owns that plate was actually in the state at the time? Like I don't like it doesn't matter. They have access to the database. Do they get to go in there?
Well, no, it just goes to the owner of that vehicle.
Do they get
And
to
then
go
it's-
in and
then
freely
it's
kick
on you.
around and do whatever? No, I
That's
get
it.
that part.
No, it's then on you. I mean, as the owner of the car, you are still responsible for that vehicle, whether you let someone borrow it.
No, I
It's still
acknowledge
on
that.
them.
That's not my point at
Right.
all. My point is that can I do that? Can I just call Wyoming and be like, hey, can you give me the name and address for the person who has this license plate?
No, that's what I was saying. I'm assuming they have not necessarily a clearance, but I guess have some kind of standing with other states as a known, camera enforcement agency or whatever, camera enforcement company. And I'm assuming they have some kind of relationship. I don't think they went into it willy nilly like, oh shit, this is the first
No, I mean,
California
obviously, it was
plate.
a
like,
huge.
we should probably try to call somebody in California and
There's
figure
probably a
out how we're
huge
gonna do this.
multi-million-dollar contract with the state of Florida, at least, which gives them
Right.
probably some level of clearance. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a private company that has access to government file work. That's kind of weird to me. I'm not.
So say I don't think they have access to the complete database where they can just type it in and have it pop up.
I would.
Or maybe actually
I would think
they
it's
could
exactly
probably
that.
more.
I would think it's exactly that they submit the plate and
I think maybe they would like outsource it to like the Florida Department of Transportation or whatever.
maybe
That also has access to other
yeah,
states'
because
Department of Transportation.
and then it's a tax revenue bit for the state department of whatever that's doing the legwork for this toll company, and they get a pinch off of it, and it goes into tax income and stuff like that too. I'm just saying anyway.
Does it something
no,
make kind of
I think
sense
it would
now?
be.
Does it seem a little less sketchy as you imagined
No, it still
out?
seems a little sketchy, but I think the idea that this road's this and then this road's that one and this road's that one, and you have all these different. I mean, essentially, what you'd end up doing is having some sort of subscription service.
Well, I mean, hell, we can't get people to sign up for how many roads you see out there. It's like sign up for a litter pickup.
Well, I mean,
And
think
you
about
think
it like.
people are gonna fucking sign up to take care of and pay to keep up that road?
But I think at least in the libertarian idealist model, which again I'm not on board with 100%. I've been trying to distance myself from that. I've been talking about this for weeks because I don't like the phrasing, because the phrasing brings up crazy shit like libertarian, so you can kill each other. It's like, no, they fucking don't. That's pretty top of their list of things you can't do even in a libertarian society. But like I think of it, I think potentially it could be like our internet services are. I have Comcast, I have AT&T, When I'm in a certain place, I use this one. In a certain place, I use that one. I have to log in. They know it's me, and I pay a certain amount for it. And as things move around, I move back and forth. So, man, one of these results going to come up. What are we waiting on, Chris?
For a while.
Usually the earlies and absentees pop up within the hour. But I mean, it took an hour to get through line. So if there were people in line at 8 o'clock, they're just now getting in.
All right. My parents were asking if we were one of the states that could start counting mail-in ballots before close of the polls. I said I don't think so, but I
think they do. They just can't report. I think they do. Well, I mean, it's all digitized anyway. I mean, they scan the thing
scanning the ballot.
Right, and it goes into the whatever. And I think as soon as the polls officially close, once the last ballot is cast, they hit go, and all those come out because they've been sitting there. Where these other ones, because I think what Matt was telling me a couple years ago is that each individual precinct, as soon as it's closed, will print a report. And then that report gets sent to the election commission, and then all those reports are compiled. So, like, if I go on this one, where is it? This precinct report right here. So you have all these different precincts, and it tells you which one. Unofficial results, governor, whatever. 0+2.
I don't think this document is going to show anything.
I mean, yeah, because nothing's reported yet. But
right.
What I'm saying is, though, like,
well, so runtime was 1:01 p.m.
Right. So let's say this one was mine at Rocky Hill, right? This report will get printed off at Rocky Hill, and then it gets taken to the election commission, and then they get compiled. And after they get compiled, you get to, they come off of one of these ones.
Cumulative.
Right. So the cumulative is all the precincts piled down into one. But, yeah. So, alas, we are still waiting.
So, waiting game. Who's going to count the fastest?
Yeah, nobody. It's just going to keep going. Like I said, I'm not expecting anything shocking. I don't see it.
I can't remember what I was reading or watching, but I think it was some kind of county in Arizona that I think it was going back and forth through the different courts where this one county wanted to straight up do hand counting for all of them. And I think at one point they were doing some of the early hand counting, and it took them like an hour and a half to go through 50 ballots.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think
they were like, what the fuck? Like, it's been an hour and a half and we've gone through 50 ballots. They're like, yeah.
I mean, I was a little like...
I tried to tell you that this is a really slow process, and it is notoriously less accurate than actually like having the computer count this.
Yeah.
You have more human error.
I get it on the... like, I forget that we have 100 and something precincts, but I was really like... The idea that 600, 700 people was a big number was kind of shocking to me.
As far as
when I was voting, he said it was number 662 of the day. I was like, that's it?
Yeah. And
then I was like, well, there's 103 precincts in Knox County.
So many people were sitting there for 10, 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, he said from the second they opened at 8 o'clock this morning, they had people constant. A little bit of line all the time. All right, so for the YouTube watchers, you're just going to get some dead air for a minute. I'm going to go say goodnight to the kids real quick. Mike is still alive for if you want to talk to the YouTube audience for fun.
Who's still alive?
We're still live on YouTube. We're just not recording.
Oh. YouTube, hold steady. One people? 2 people? No people.
What's up, YouTube fam? And 3, 2, 1. We're back recording. What are you checking out? All right.
All right.
Good night, kids, everybody.
Good night.
No, not you kids, my kids. So I've been sipping on this
Should I say it louder so they can hear
Castle
me?
and Key for my video audience. That way, non-sponsored beverage. I'm not really digging on it. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little bit.
Any questions pop up on the YouTube yet?
No, I got no YouTube questions. I got people watching. It says, at least according to the stat thingy.
So I was joking when you walked away. I was like, "What you got? Like 1, 2,
Some.
some." Well, sorry to leave you guys in the dark. I didn't think anybody was there.
Well.
Throw us a chat. Ask us a question.
Seriously, holler at your boys. Yeah. Well, as per usual, Daniel Herrera disappoints me. Son of a bitch.
I mean, it is election night.
It is election night indeed. But I mean, he said he would. He promised.
Did he?
Promise if you're
Did
not
he
gonna-
promise?
Yeah. Do you want me to read it
Okay.
to you? I'll
No.
read it to you.
No, I'll take your word for it.
Well, it sounds like you're not taking my word for it. Anyway, what were we talking about before that? Talking about private roads and whatever. Oh, that really all started with the Zachary. I can't get by. Like, I can't rationalize the idea of Zachary, and I think Lafferty's in on it, but he's not as vocal about it. But Zachary is kind of one of the principal figures in this Vandy Trans Health Clinic and getting it shut down. And I think it's shitty. I just think I do. I don't. It doesn't matter. My point is, I don't have the right to condone, or it doesn't matter whether I condone it or not. I don't have the right to say you can't do that. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me.
All right. It's not something you agree with, but you got no dog in that fight.
It's not even that. Like, I would take issue with it if they were doing it without parental. Like, if a 14-year-old walked in there and said, I want to change genders, and they performed a surgery with no parental, I'd have a problem with that. But if the parents are on board and they go through some, I mean, because again, as I understand it, this Vandy clinics,
It's a very lengthy process.
right? It's not like you just walk in and they snip it and call it a day.
Like,
They go
okay,
through
well,
and there's
are you
counseling.
Available, are you available
Right.
next week?
There's counseling and there's mental health people they're involved, and there's
Right.
hormone specialists and this, that, and the other. And so, again, if the thing exists, they're going to do it. And so do it as safely as you can do it. I mean, again, the point is not what the procedure is. The idea is that, because I mean, again, like I think Marsha Blackburn was tweeted about how excited she was that they were shutting this clinic down or whatever. I was like, how old were you when you got your ears pierced?
Yeah.
Is that or is it not genital mutilation, but is that mutilation of a minor?
I mean, there's parents that take their high schoolers in for like breast augmentation,
Mm-hmm. I mean,
so they can be
we're
popular.
in conversation with
Just so their kid, can be popular.
we're in conversation, me and the missus, about whether or not we're going to take our tonsils out of our youngest. Is that mutilation of a child?
No.
Why not? Because it's medically, it's socially acceptable to get your tonsils removed. It's not socially acceptable to get your balls
It's
removed.
not done until recommended by the doctor. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I still got mine.
I got mine too.
I just never had a bad enough sore throat or bad
Yeah.
enough infection. They were like, "Hey, you should think about taking this out."
Yeah, I mean they kind of did with us. Like, I mean, they told like his doctor said you might need to look at this. We took him to a ear, nose, and throat guy. He's like, yeah, we can. Our doctor was like, you probably should look into this. The ear, nose, and throat guy was like, whatever you want to do. Like, I mean, it's really like, it's up to you guys.
Yeah.
And so again, but I mean, I
So
think
years ago did like tonsils and adenoids.
but my point is, I think it's analogous in the sense that
Now,
we've had conversations with the doctor on whether it's something that would be good for the health of our child. They say, yeah, we think it probably could be good, but it's not something that's like life and death important that we have to do it. But it could be a positive. It's up to you guys. Put some thought into it and get back to us. I think it's quite analogous personally.
I don't.
It's permanent. You can't take it back. It doesn't, you can't put them back in. And it's a minor. I think there's a lot of points to it. It's not a perfect analogy, but I think it's close. But nobody would bat an eye if we decided to take the tonsils out of our kid. But Zachary's trying to tell parents how they can handle their kids who have gender issues, for lack of a better word. That's not the right wording. I apologize. I don't mean to say it's an issue. they're not comfortable in their bodies. Whatever. I wasn't comfortable in my body when I was 14 either, but I'm still not. I'm 42, 41, but I go. Yeah, point is, I just thought, like, I can't, that bothers me enough. If I was in 14, there's no way I could vote for Zachary. If I was in,
I said, just seeing some of the stuff I did with him on the floor, I was like, I don't like this
Right.
guy.
he's very sensationalist. He's very, like, I don't like it. I just don't, I don't think that's the way, that does not represent me. Like, I don't like the idea of being like, oh.
Well, I think he was one of the lead people for the bill they passed about. It kind of got blown up into it was a free for all. If you happen to have like protesters around you, that you can just floor it, and if you feel threatened, you can essentially run over people if
Yeah.
you feel threatened. Because I guess he was in his neighborhood and people were protesting on a street and it was blocking his driveway, and he was like, I couldn't even leave.
I mean,
But
I think,
guess I think that bill ended up passing, but it was kind of weird. I don't know if it ended up passing, but there was a lot of debate on it as to, you know, one side saw it as, you know, this is essentially a green light to mow somebody over if you feel like they're protesting. If they're just like walking across the street and you feel freaked out, like you can just
right.
hammer down on the accelerator.
Right, because it's a very hard threshold
like,
to
I
prove.
gotta get to work.
Right. It's
You
very
can't block my way.
It's a very hard threshold to prove that
And
you
it's
weren't
like, wait,
threatened.
we're also doing a First Amendment protected right about here protesting. Like, we're not. And there's a difference between, you know, just straight up, like, you know, blocking traffic.
But I
or
mean, I
just
kind of
enough
get it at
people,
the
like,
same
walking
time
down
too.
the
It's like,
street.
you know, like I got into it. I didn't get into it, but like there was this kind of fucking crazy dude on Central by the news store, and he's like, "Hey man, you got anything?" I was like, "No, I got nothing for you, man. I'm sorry, or whatever." I was trying to be polite and nice, but he's like, "Come on, you gotta have something." And like he stood behind my car, and I was trying to back out of the space I was in because I had somewhere to be, and he stood behind my car and started yelling at me. I'm like, dude, I got nothing for you. And I certainly, if I had something for you, I'm not giving it to you now that you're trying to not let me leave and take care of what I need to take care of.
Right.
Like where there's, you know, I wasn't threatened per se that, you know, I mean, he could have punched me or my car, but I didn't feel any real sense of threat like I was going to die. But it's there's a line somewhere. I'm allowed to protect my things, and my car is one of my things.
Right.
But it's hard to say I'm trying to protect my thing by running somebody over with the thing that I'm damaging in the process.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a loose argument. But I'm just saying, like, there's a line somewhere in that. And when you get, especially in some of the mob situations that happen in some of these protests, I could see being stuck in your car and feeling very threatened.
Right.
And then, you know, it's like, well, I can't do anything. I can't move. If I hit the gas and hit this person, it's now like, you know, attempted vehicular homicide or something like that, and I don't want to go to jail for that. But these people are banging on the doors and the hood and screaming at me and saying crazy things to me, and I'm stuck here. I can sympathize with the idea of wanting to be like, fuck it.
Right, but that's a much more rare occurrence that they're actually like banging on somebody's
Again,
car
like,
versus
right,
just walking in the streets and blocking your route.
Right, and
basically,
like you
driving
said, the
down road.
bill was fairly non-specific. Seemed to be fairly non-specific about the threshold of where this line is of threat.
Right.
But yeah, but still, it's the same. I mean, it's the same as being an abortion doctor right now. You have to prove that it was self-defense. It's not a assumed one. That's the craziness. I mean, there are no abortion doctors now, but if you were to perform an abortion under the auspices that it was to save the life of the mother, you would now have to prove that in court, which is fucking crazy.
Right.
You know, which again, I don't particularly care for that one either. That's the one that's a little, like, I don't think that's I don't think that's the appropriate way to go about it. And like, but at the same time, I don't think the Democrats ran a good campaign against it, because all they talk about is exceptions, and everybody and their brother knows they don't want just the exceptions.
I don't know if that was them just trying to find some kind of common ground, or at least something to focus on that they thought made the other side look worse. Is they're not even at least willing to concede a few exceptions. They're like, you know, not even in rape. And they're like, no, not even incest. Like, no, nothing. They were pushing back of those people that were saying like no exceptions whatsoever. Well, I'm assuming it's just kind of like the Democrats, like we're at least willing to concede, and they're like only in these rare circumstances where the other side
Right,
is
but
saying,
but
like,
again, as
none whatsoever.
for the affirmative vote part of it, if I was somebody who believed in like a 20-week abortion threshold or something like that, more range in it, not having to have some exceptionable rule on why you could or couldn't have one. If I'm that person and you want me activated to vote for you, I don't want to hear about exception only. I want to hear, well, what we would like is this, but we'll start with some exceptions.
Right.
But all they ran on is exceptions. Greg did it when he was in here. Amanda Collins did it when she was in here. I actually put Amanda on the spot. I was like, I hear you on the exceptions thing and how that's problematic,
I mean,
but
were
where would
they
you
s-
actually like it to be?
Were they saying that there should be at least be exceptions?
Right. They're when
I mean, I guess even in Tennessee, they were saying, hey, we should at least have exceptions. Like, we know we're in the minority here. We're pushing for at least some exceptions.
but I didn't take it as like when you say it, at least some exceptions. That's not how it was. I felt it was
That's
presented.
what I said. I'm not
It was
sure.
presented to me as that we should have these exceptions.
Right.
Not we would like it to be here, but we'll settle at least for an immediate exception set, and then we can talk about trying to find the right
Expanding it
line in the
further,
right
right.
place. But it was always just the exceptions. And so if I'm somebody who believes that it's a human right for the female body autonomy thing, you're not even giving me that if I'm a Democrat. Like if I'm a Democrat and you're the Democrat running, you're not even giving me the truth. The truth that I want to hear, that is probably the truth that you feel, but for campaigning purposes, you're playing just this exception line. It's like, nah, come on, give us the truth, because some of us that are independent voters, we might actually want what you're actually after instead of just the exception too. And I think they short sold it. I think nationally it's been short sold on a lot of these races that are running on it, because the Democrats nationally have been running on the abortion issue, but they keep running on the exceptions or the lack of exceptions being the problem. And it's like, well, run on accepting that as a concession in the middle ground, but that's not what you actually want, because that's not what your voters want. I'd say most voters who are pro-choice are not pro-exception choice. They're pro-choice. But you're not even giving them that, which I don't think changes your odds of winning. I don't think that's people that are anti-abortion are anti-abortion, and they're not going to vote for you no matter what, exception or not.
Well, yeah, throughout the country, there's a lot of different talking points that have since
Right.
been pushed, because, I mean, a lot of it's they're looking on, like, polling data and seeing what the latest poll they did or what questions that, the handful of people that actually filled out the kind of survey are thinking.
Right.
That they
Okay.
extrapolate into a larger sect of people. It's like, hey, we got polls back from 250 people of a little questionnaire, so this is how we're going to have our whole campaign
Right.
run on what kind of numbers we got back.
Well, I think
from
that's
a very
see,
small.
but that's not even necessarily true in the grand scheme of things. That's not important. I was trying to think about a way to kind of bridge this conversation. Like I've heard it a lot, like a lot of polling stuff, a lot of like street interviews or whatever. It's like, what is your top issue when you go to the polls? Like you hear like that's a question that's very commonly asked, and they do it. Some of them do it in the survey format, and then these go back to think tanks and they turn them up and spit them out, and that's how they come up with different campaign stuff that they want to do. But like I've been thinking about that, as far as it sadly confirms the suspicion I talk about a lot, is that people don't know who the fuck does what and how. Because economy is a big issue. Okay, well, like what? What about the economy? How? What are the things? And what is the Republican that you're going to vote for because you care about the economy going to do that the Democrat that's currently there isn't? And I find that fascinating. So for you though, but for you personally, what would you think are top issues to you as a voter? What wasn't campaigned on right now? What could possibly have been the thing that says, so you know what, it's time for me to get my shit together as far as getting my registration corrected and go vote. It is important. It is important enough that it's going to get me off my ass to vote this time, because I'm not trying to be insulting. I apologize if I'm coming off that way. But what is there an issue that you could think of that you would say this is one that I have to go vote for? I have to go through the process, even if it's a fruitless, even though if I know it's not going to really make a difference, but this issue is that important to me that I'm going to take the time to actually vote this time.
I mean, I think there was. I know There's been a couple like quote unquote infrastructure bills, but I think that's one thing that's been constantly neglected for
I agree.
over 20, 30 years.
I'm very
Everybody's
confused
sort
on
of
this
been
one.
like kicking that can down the road till somebody else really wants to.
Well, and I think
Well, like,
Larson.
"Oh, we need to spend money on this.
Yeah, I think Larson said it best when I had him in here forever ago. It's like you don't win for being proactive in infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's not a political win for you, and I think that's true across the board. I give Larson kudos for saying it out loud, because you go and you spend the money intelligently. That means you are proactive. You're ahead of the curve.
Right.
But then everybody looks at you and says, "He spent
That
$20
wasn't
billion
broken." It's
on
like,
this thing."
Yeah, but it was about to break. I don't think you realize how close this thing was to
Right.
breaking.
Right. It's one of those you don't see it until it's gone, or until it's a problem.
Right.
And then you're like, "Why didn't you fix this sooner?" It's like,
Right,
well,
like the bridge going over from Tennessee into
right on 40.
into Arkansas, Texarkana, I guess.
Yeah, I had enough like
It's
structural
like, yeah, there's
damage.
a 3-inch gap
Yeah.
and completely in the middle.
I just like
And they're like, hey, we're gonna have to shut down a major interstate that runs across the entire interstate for a good 3 or 4 months while we fix this.
but even on that though, I mean like that's something that is talked about. But that's not an activating issue for you. Like what would be an issue that would activate you? Like actually activate
I
like
think some people talk about it, but there's not really like much that's actually like a push to be done for it. And finally be like, hey, we need to upgrade our, water treatment facilities. We have that issue all across the U.S.
Well, see, but I think the problem with that, with what you're saying, I agree with you, but I think the campaign problem with that is people say it all the time.
Right.
And it's just kind of the point where it's like, well, yeah, everybody wants good roads and good schools. We want great schools. We want great roads. We need to invest in our future as a state.
But I mean, as far as like fixing the failing things that have been like graded on like a D to D plus rating consistently
Right.
for the past 10, 20 years.
Right, but I'm just, my point is that like I agree with you. I just think that it's not a real truly activating issue because it's been an issue that's been run on, but still continues to not get anything done. If a politician
Well, I mean,
says to you,
you could say that about many of the even just general talking points
Right.
consistently through any.
but that's what I'm
election.
saying. That's why I'm trying to focus on a particular. I'm trying to find a singular issue for you that will get you across that bridge to go vote.
Right.
Because again, like plenty of people run on it and talk about it and stuff like that, but obviously it's not enough to get you to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to put forth the effort to vote for that person. What does that person need to have? What do they need to be talking about? What do they need to show you as an important issue to them to get you to take that step?
I don't think there's really one like hot button issue that would, get me to go out and do that just over one particular issue.
Okay, is
If
there
I'm
a
gonna get-
is there a
if I'm gonna
collective
get
of
gung-ho
issues?
about a candidate, I would want to get, be more interested in that particular candidate, I guess, in general, as far as like what kind of candidate and I guess even like a kind of person there are, essentially,
Right.
like the impression of how that candidate would actually be in a representative role.
Right, because I mean, listen, I mean, like, I don't mean this at all to be condescending in any way, shape, or form, because I get it.
What?
Like, I agree with you. I'm in line for an hour, and I'm kind of laughing in the back of my head about how stupid this is. Like, why am I waiting in line for an hour? Why are these people waiting in line for an hour? Like, it doesn't, because I agree with Max. Nothing's fucking changing tomorrow or December 3rd or whenever these people get sworn in. Nothing's of significance. Not to me. I'm not trans.
And he's
And
not
I
wrong
don't-
when you look at overall races. I mean, we had at least I think we've only got one that's essentially uncontested. So one that's
two,
guaranteed.
depending on where you are in county, but
So
and he specifically
at least two that are just gimmies.
right, and he specifically has one of them. Max lives in Carringer's district, so his house rep is fixed.
Right.
But Burchett or Bill Lee for that matter, those are those are given. I mean they're like people went out and voted for him. They were contested, air quotes, but those were given. Like the answer was already made.
Right.
There was no surprise in that one. Or there would be no surprise in that one. And then there's, again, like I don't think there's going to be surprises in any of these. But
That's one they've said consistently, for the past many elections, is that there is, I want to say probably averaging at least half to not 2/3 of races are essentially
right. Well,
not
I mean,
really close races whatsoever.
at least on the national picture or whatever in the Senate races, according to NBC News, there are 8 Senate races that are truly contested. There's way more Senate races in the
Out of how many? I mean, I know all of them aren't on this election cycle.
right.
but
Well, I mean, they're yeah. I don't know how many total. There's 100. You know, I mean, there's 100 Senate seats,
probably
but
at least from a third to half, probably.
right. But I think they're saying the best. It's 50-50 with the vice president tiebreaker currently. I think the most people are estimating the best that the Republicans could do would get to like a 56. It wouldn't pass that 60 threshold to get it to the filibuster proofness or whatever, but it would get like 56, 57 is the most that they think they could pull. So again, I don't know how many races total. Tennessee doesn't have any Senate races this time around, so there's at least 2 off the board. But I mean, the big ones being the Georgia one, the Philadelphia or the Pennsylvania one, Arizona, that's 3 of the top ones. Ohio, Wisconsin, Colorado's apparently, but it's not particularly likely that that's going to be a change. But Colorado's one of them. Wyoming, obviously, with what's her face. Liz Cheney
get the primary.
She
So
lost
I
the
think
primary. That's what I'm saying. She lost the primary, so whoever beat her in the primary is going to take her seat. So it's not really it's contested, but it's not really contested. It's very likely that whoever took Liz Cheney's spot. We got Alaska because Palin's running again.
Was the person that's taken over for Cheney? I guess they're both running, so they still have.
Right. Well, Cheney lost the primary, so Cheney's
essentially a two-party race still
Right.
going on for this election.
But it's Wyoming, and Democrats don't win shit in Wyoming.
True.
Like, period.
Right.
And so that one's already a win for whoever beat Cheney or whatever. Which is still crazy that like Democrats were supporting Cheney because I don't understand. I don't know. Like Cheney was
She
running
got
on
the
it.
news for backing 2. I don't know what races, but it was in two other states, but backing Democratic
Right.
candidates.
But like Liz Cheney, daughter of Dick Cheney,
Right.
is a moderate
Not
Republican.
Republican enough.
Is,
for the
right. She's a
Republican Party.
rhino. Right.
So what wasn't she like one of the top people in the Republican like National Committee?
Mm-hmm. That's the bullshittery that is the party stuff. But again, I want to go back to this, and again, like
What?
I want to know what will it take to get you to vote? Because I think this is a broader question. I don't think this is just about you. I think it's about Max. I think it's about a lot of people. Again, I'd say we're going to be lucky to get to
This
130,000.
This wasn't about not wanting to vote.
Why didn't you vote?
I'm in the middle of households, and I'm not going to go vote in a precinct that I'm not a constituent in.
Okay. Again,
I thought I explained this to you before, and you keep wanting to keep asking me about this shit.
I mean, I understand the move part, and you would technically be committing voter fraud because you don't live in the district that you would be voting in because you hadn't updated.
That's
your
more of
registration.
just voting for someone that's not technically my representative anyway.
I mean, there's plenty on there that would have been. I mean, you could have skipped your state house race, and you still could have done the Burchett
House,
race
yeah.
and the governor's race.
Right.
I just like again, I 100% understand the voter apathy conversation, and maybe let me change the question then. Instead of not you personally, but what do you think could be? What do you think we could do to motivate more people to get involved in it?
We've asked this question many times.
But I think it's a question. I think it's a
I
question
don't
that
know.
we need to explore.
I mean, I've floated the prospect
The
of
mandatory
voting, right?
Which I get where you're coming from.
I
that
think
one,
more
but that's
people would
very-
push back on just be like, "You can't tell me I have to do that."
I mean, I think that's 100% fact. I mean, I think that is part of.
But I mean, I don't. That's like the first and most obvious thing to get the actual like most feedback essentially from voting constituency. I mean, if we're consistently going at like 16 to maybe 20% of eligible voters actually going out and voting,
Right.
yeah, we still
they're
got
all-
most of the country like, shit's all fucked up, and we never get representation.
least
It's like,
Well, fucking do it.
go
Well,
with-
at least in early voting, like of the 60-something thousand in early voting, over half. I don't remember the stat exactly. They talked about this in the Cuppa show. I wish I knew it off the top of my head, but I believe it was like 70% of the total of early voting was over 60.
of age.
And then of that 70%, like 35% of that was over 70. So whatever the math is, so like 30% of the total early voting of the 60,000 or so is over 70. And I will say this: when I was in line,
I'd say that's rare.
I counted about 75 people in line, and I would say the average age was probably 50. I didn't see many people that I thought were younger than me, and I saw a good number of people significantly older than me. Like that, there was enough people. There was a handful of people in line that I was like, I don't know if this person's going to be able to stand for an hour to wait in line. Like legitimately, like canes and
Right.
getting that. What is it when your back starts to break down and you?
Scoliosis.
Yeah, you're all humpbacked and stuff. But they were there and they were doing their thing, and I'm happy for them. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying it's like other than people that had to drag their kids along with them, there was not a lot of. I wouldn't say I wouldn't think like two people I saw that were probably in their 20s.
I mean, I don't know if it would help a whole lot, but I think having election day as an actual like federal holiday, to where not everybody's going to get the day off, but maybe more people would get the day off to actually have the chance to go out and vote.
Well, I heard. I don't know if this is true, but I heard it's federal law that your employer is required to give you paid time to go to the polls.
I don't know.
I would.
I haven't
I
heard
mean,
much about that. I would say it probably varies from state to state. There may be some states that do offer that.
depending on the employee that
That's-
we have, I would
Say
be
there's
okay
enough
with that.
employers that would push back on that, especially if it's like maybe like a factory or whatever. They're like, hey, I can't give you 5 hours of paid time off to go
I mean,
drive down to your
right.
drive back. Like you live 45 minutes away from your place of business.
Right. You had
You got to go back to your
in the poll.
precinct. Stand in line for an hour and a half.
Right. And I mean, especially locally, I would argue that's your fault as the voter. You have so many options and so much time to vote that if you are gonna I would say that's a dick move as an employee. If you're gonna demand paid hours to
I
go
mean,
vote.
if you're working in a factory situation at 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and you wanted to go early vote,
There was
you would have
Most
to
of
ask
them
for
are
that
open-
time off to go out and do that.
most of them were open to 7. In Knox County, at least, there was Saturday. There was one Saturday that was an
Saturday.
option. And even in that, though, I think from what I've heard at least, that the early voting went a lot quicker than it did today. So you could.
That's almost a given, yeah.
So you could have gone and taken that hour lunch break, and actually done your early voting in that hour lunch break, and not lost your lunch break. The
Possibly.
entirety of your lunch break, where if you would have gone on
Possibly.
day
I
of, you would have.
guarantee it depends. And
It's
it
not-
depends on how close your precinct was to where you work.
I agree. I acknowledge those key points.
I mean, hell,
I think 3 hours is
I
a
would
lot.
take an hour lunch break at a place and would try to go like literally 10 minutes down the road in Turkey Creek. Try
Well,
to sit down and have
that's
lunch
also
for
Turkey
like
Creek Cafe,
20
right.
minutes.
That right, but
Right,
I think
but I wasn't going more than like half a mile.
Right.
I mean, it was quote unquote kind
it's
of
a
like
high traffic zone. But
lunch traffic, but still, I would like barely having time to like shovel food to make
I
it
think
to the same place
I
in
could-
Turkey Creek.
I could get on board. Personally, I would support.
I mean, it sounds simple, but I mean, it's
No, I'm just
it's
saying,
not
I
that
would support-
feasible for most people.
I would support maybe an hour of paid time, and a understanding that up to 3 hours is allowed but not paid. Like I'll pay you for if you want to go vote, go vote.
All right.
I'll pay you. I'll keep. You can stay on the clock for an hour of that. If you go past an hour, you're clocked out until you come back.
Right.
I think that would be more fair. 3 hours is a lot. That's a lot of time. Even if because it's not the employer's fault that you live an hour away. Why would I pay for your commute because you decided to commute that far?
Right.
And so, but I'm on board with the idea. I mean, the problem with the federal holiday thing, though, even or even a state or local holiday, is who actually gets those days off.
Right. As I said,
Banks
you would
and-
get some, but I mean, you're still going to have
Right.
most
Banks and
quote-unquote
government
essential
buildings.
places. Right. They'll get the day off. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I
if
mean,
you
a lot
work
of
in
places are still going to want to be open.
if you work in the city county building and you didn't early vote, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's literally 2 doors down, like maybe one floor up in the building and 2 doors down, you could have absolutely early voted quite easily
Right.
from where you were.
But I mean, if you're in a performance-based job to where you've got to get so many things done per day, like yeah, they may give you three hours to go off and go vote with no repercussions, but you still maybe you didn't meet that quota for the day, so you get paid less because you didn't get as much work done. It's on you because you didn't go early vote, but
Right, I could find some middle ground in that. I could acknowledge some middle ground in that, but I think that's again, like this one being weird to me. Like honestly, this election going took it as long as it was weird to me. And I haven't had in my history I have not. This is the longest it's ever taken me to vote this year. Like by far. So I don't know what to say. Like I don't know what happened this time. I intend to follow up with Chris about it and see if he has any thoughts on what was going on that took it.
well, I think you've asked Chris in the past. When I think I've asked you if you've asked him about, if he has any ideas of how we do it, and his responses, with the early voting is, well, we have like a week and a half or a week of it.
Right, it's like 10 days.
And even then, a lot of people don't come out.
Right. And again, but
To where
'cause
they're considering, it's like, hey, we've got people that are twiddling their thumbs for a couple hours because nobody's coming in.
Right.
It's like, do we need to have 5 volunteers there for that day, or the next election cycle, do we take it down to 3 or 4?
I push back on the use of the word volunteer because they get paid to be there. But I do think there's
Did they ask to be there?
Huh?
Did they ask to be there?
I mean, do you volunteer to come to work? I mean, it is a voluntary relationship. I agree, but I think when most people say volunteer, they
But
think.
anytime they're compensated, you're no longer volunteering. You have to volunteer for free. In any
I mean,
instance,
I think
if you get paid, you're no longer a volunteer.
when you say I volunteered to help with the kids, I would assume that most people would assume what you're saying is that you went and helped out for free. Yes, I think that would be the standard connotation of the phrase. Like, I volunteered to go to work today? No, you went to work today. Didn't volunteer, but technically, yes. Technically, I volunteered. It's a voluntary relationship I'm in with my employer.
But I wouldn't. I wouldn't consider it a job. Basically,
I'm just they fill out paperwork. They get
Right.
a W-2.
they get paid for it. Yes.
Just like I get a W-2 for
Are
my
you
day
arguing
job.
that it should be an unpaid volunteer?
No, I'm just saying I don't
But
like.
if they're going to call volunteers,
They shouldn't be called
should
volunteers. They should be called election workers or
Most people could just call them poll workers. But
poll workers is fine. I was just
most people call them volunteers because they literally sign up for it. They volunteer.
right, and
because
I volunteer for my J job as you
The-
volunteer to work
the
at your
silent
jobs.
call is put out there for, hey, we need people to help us to man the polls.
Yes.
And like you said, it's usually some of the same people that are doing it year in and year out.
Yep. They had Jets Pizza today.
But
Shout
they
out
s-
to Jets. Hopefully
they
they
sign
hooked
up
it up.
for it.
Yeah.
So they
right.
They volunteer to help.
Right, just like I signed up for my job, I volunteered to work that job in exchange for pay. That is the definition of the relationship that I have with my employer. So I should call myself a volunteer when I go to work. That's the only thing I'm pointing at. It doesn't matter. Backing up. How do we get more people to vote? What issues really matter? And I think Max hit it on the head. I think the thing is that it's not about the issues that matter and don't matter. It's the general assumption that it doesn't matter. It
Right.
doesn't change. That machine moves the way that machine moves.
That's been a pretty constant, just apathy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't know how to fix that one either. But I think it's one of those. It's a
think-
chicken or the egg conversation. I think once.
Well, and also in those kind of like strong blue or red areas, they also see like it, or they all it
Right.
kind of lends to that kind of same mentality as
Right, in a state like Tennessee, that for the most part, except for Nashville and Memphis, and I mean Knoxville's got a little bit of hints of blue here and there. Chattanooga's the same, but for the most part, for the state of Tennessee, it's going to be a Republican. So, whether you like Republicans or you consider yourself a Republican or you consider yourself a Democrat or an independent, it's going to be the Republican at the end of the day. So, what are you doing? To me, I think the number one I think ranked choice is the first solution. I think that is the first one that I don't know how to get that to be a thing that, like, it's got to be sold in a way that Republicans think that it's good for them.
I'm trying to like get back on our state website because I know when you look for bills and amendments on the Capitol.tn or whatever, or if you can put that in as a keyword.
Ranked
If anyone's
choice.
actually ever floated the idea of it.
Right. I don't know if it's an official. I mean, I could talk to the 4All TN guys because I know that's a platform issue for their lobby group. And I know there's been.
Well, I'd say if that's the case, yeah, they've probably at least tried to float
there's
it
been
or-
some support for it, but not enough to matter. And again, like I think to me the moral is you have to make it. You have to sell it to Republicans and make Republicans think that it's good for their electability, which I think it absolutely is not. I mean, realistically, I think it is it would be a net negative for Republicans.
I would think a lot of that would come down to how many people they either persuade to or persuade not to run that could then take away from possibly the numbers of whatever the party would like to be, or the
Right.
person the party would like to back or whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think it would. I mean, I think that the sales pitch would be. The sales pitch to Republicans would be. We could make elections cheaper. And you're Republicans, you're supposed to be cheap. That's part of your pitch. So we can make elections cheaper by not having this primary process. And you as the party can put your own candidate up and you don't have to put it out to the public anymore. That would be the sales pitch. I think if you're going to try to pitch it to Republicans as a benefit for them. So you go back to the Ostermanis primary and that shit show that we sat in the crazy phone call for with the dog named Trump. You say, look, you don't have that problem anymore, Republican Party. You guys caucus. You guys get the party together and you put the candidate who you want to run for 18 in. And then you take that whole issue off the table if we go to ranked choice because we don't have the primary like we do now. And I think you'd get more voter involvement because you'd have less elections because you wouldn't have a May primary or an August primary. You would just have an August county general and a November general. And then I would pitch personally.
Well, I wonder if they would still do kind of like a semi-runoff for it, do like the 10 and then narrow it down to 5, and then those 5, kind of like the way they do runoffs now.
Well,
certain
but that's
things
what
to
but
where
a
essentially
ranked
go to-
a ranked choice does that in real time. That's the point. So if you had 10 people, like so the governor's race, let me pull the governor's race up.
Right, but as far as like the primaries that we did, like where you're doing the primary and the general both as ranked choice, so that primaries narrowing down those 10 candidates down to 5, and then you take those 5 that then would go on to be in the general. To where you're still doing ranked choice, but you've essentially kind of slimmed it down a little bit.
Ooh, I just got an update from WBRR. Technical issues in Knox County election and larger turnout lead to delays in results.
Goody gumdrops.
So that's why Chris won't call me.
That's I'm sure he's probably answering a lot of questions.
Yeah. So, but that's the point of the ranked choice is you take out that deduction factor. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people running for governor. It's all like if I wanted to vote for Constance, I vote for Constance as 1 and Martin is 2. And Rouse Alfred O'Neill is 3. And so anybody that doesn't hit the threshold gets dropped, and then whoever gets dropped, whoever had them as a 2 goes to their 1, and it just does. It's all inside it. You could have 3 people, 7 people, 15 people, 2 people. It doesn't matter. When you do ranked choice, it's going to get you everybody in one. You don't need to have a primary anymore. The only point of the primary in the first place is to help the party choose their candidate.
Yeah.
It's not to help me and you choose who we want to have represent us. It's to have the party choose who they want to represent the party for representing us. And that's why Republicans won't like it, because it's not going to help them, and that's why they won't pass it in a state like Tennessee, which is Republican majority. So either
I think there's a number of issues that could be cleaned up in the election process. I think a lot of people, when we talk about the apathy, when they look at some of the campaign finance reform that's always kind of floated after every election, when they talk about the millions and millions of dollars that are spent
It's a crazy
on every
amount of
single
money.
election, and for what?
Right.
How much of that And a lot of it is taxpayer funded.
Some of it is, yeah.
The state will put up, for the major parties so much to be used. To our wonder, is there a way to essentially kind of force campaigns to like, hey, this is your $100,000 from the state. You can spend no more, and no one else can contribute to it.
I'm not. Yeah,
Because you can't really force private, I guess, quote unquote citizens, even if they're billionaires or whatever. You can't force them to not throw their money around however they choose.
See, that's the problem I have, and that's where like the Citizens United. I don't know the details of the case or whatever, but that's where the idea that if I want to, with my money, send you a mailer that speaks for or against the candidate I like or don't like or whatever, I think I should be liable for defamation if it's defamatory. I should, if it's slanderous or defamatory.
Right.
I think that threshold should exist. But outside of that, I don't think it's appropriate for anybody to say I can't.
Right.
Which that reminds me, we're going back to the Arizona thing.
And I think the individual donors may not have been pushed back on as much, but I think a lot more people kind of associate like the quote unquote super PACs essentially. Where you've got so much money that can be funneled from many of sources into gigantic amounts of a campaign's funds.
Right, and I mean I've mentioned it on here before. I think it's inappropriate that a candidate can use campaign donations for their campaign and then donate that to somebody else's campaign. I think that's inappropriate. I don't think that makes sense. Like, I understand the rationale for it. I get all that part of it, but it's still just like, I donated to you for your campaign, not for you to help somebody else's campaign.
Right.
Yeah, why would I if I wanted to help their campaign, I would have donated to their campaign, because even though I don't get to vote for that person, I can donate to them directly too. Which again, that kind of could theoretically be a workaround. If your state has a maximum donation to a candidate, and my candidate is a well-established candidate, I don't have to worry about it. Well, I donate to my candidate and the candidate in the neighboring party or the neighboring district that I want to help, and then my candidate donates to them, so I just double donated.
Right.
Now, I guess if it was like paper trail that's what we were doing, that could be a problem, but I'm sure that happens.
Yeah, I'm sure someone smart enough has already figured out the workaround to keep the scrutiny, I guess, to the least amount.
Yeah. All right, so going back, because we started talking about the crazy Arizona people standing around with guns thing, which and the intimidation thing, and so anyway, that was basically the conversation that was on the colloquy that kind of had some back and forth on. It was interesting, is that somebody said, hey, with all this crazy shit going on in Arizona right now, does anybody in here have, like, they were kind of asking Scott and Jesse, but they just kind of put it out to the entirety of the group, like, has there been any reporting on any instances of similar style of voter intimidation going on here in Knox County? And so my good friend, I'm gonna stop calling him my name, I'm gonna start referring to him as my friend, said that when he voted in 2018, I think is what he said, he was at Cedar Bluff as his polling location, and that there were, no, I guess it had been, it was 18 midterm, that there were people driving around the polling location on the roads, but around the polling location in big trucks with Trump flags. And that was his comparable, or that was the intimidation that he had seen here in Knox County. To which I said,
I might see that as intimidation.
Like, I like if some dude leads out his truck and says, if you vote for Biden, I'm going to fucking kill you, that's a problem. That should be a crime, or that is a crime. That is a threat of violence, right. And should be treated as such, and maybe have an extra bonus on it because it's involved in an election process. But like, to me, that's not intimidating. Some dudes in a truck driving around. 'Cause like, I mean, my pushback on it, which was sort of like tongue in cheek or whatever, was like a handful of people standing next to the doorway in their t-shirt and their matching t-shirts and their signs that support their candidate. Am I going to say that's intimidating to me? They're 100 feet from the door because that's how far they're required to be away. Because I don't like the candidate and what it stands for. Is that intimidating, or is that them supporting their candidate?
Right.
And that's why I was asking the question, like, where's that line, realistically? And I think there needs to be a specific threat. I guess that's, to me, the line to me is there needs to be a specific threat, like an actual either interfering with the process, so like standing in front of you and not letting you get to the polling location,
Right.
or a direct threat of violence or harm if you go vote. That is intimidation to me.
Give me an example of a direct threat.
A direct threat would be.
I mean, I know what a direct threat is.
I'm just saying, like, a direct threat would be you look like somebody will vote for a Republican. If you go in there and vote, I'll kill you. I would call that a direct threat.
So
I'm trying to stop you from
actual
voting.
Interaction.
Right.
So what was going on in Arizona is
I would
kind of
say
in a gray area for you.
A little bit. I mean, I would say
maybe so,
you.
maybe not.
I would say, brandishing the weapon has some intimidation to it, but short of, I would think you would need to. I think there would need to be a very specific. It can't be an implied. It needs to be of a specific something of this thing's for you if you go in there and vote. Like it can't just be I think they're going to shoot me if I go vote. That's not enough to be. I don't feel like it's an implied threat at that point, and I think that's a little bit too vague.
I mean, it comes down to that person's perception of essentially of intimidation. Just as your use of deadly force. If you're able to articulate that you felt threatened, you have that right to use deadly force. All you've got to do is prove that you felt threatened, that's the legal standard.
I get it, but I don't know that.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. To legally, to essentially kind of try to go after someone for intimidation at a polling place or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think.
I mean, it comes down to literally that person's perception. That's where you kind of get into that kind of.
But it's
weird gray area where you literally have to try to interpret someone else's mindset.
Right, and I think that's
it's
why
hard to prove what was or wasn't in that person's
right, and that's why I think to me the threshold is it can't be an implicit; it has to be an explicit.
Right.
It can't be an implied. Well, I'm big and I got my body armor and I got my gun here. That means you can't vote. It needs to be I state the fact, and then I'm actually intimidating you. I mean, it's just to say that so fucking Albert Hainsworth walks in the door right now and sits down in the chair. Dude's fucking 6'8", 375 pounds, pro fucking athlete, murderer on the football field. I will be intimidated by that person because he's fucking huge. Is it a crime for him to be a fucking huge person? Like, he's a known huge person who hurts people as part of his job. Is it a crime for him to stand near a polling station because he is an intimidating individual by definition?
Right, and I would have a different perception if he happened to walk in and sit down, put on a pair of brass knuckles on his fingers, and all of a sudden started lacing up some steel-toed boots and trying to think of some other random shit, But brass knuckles on one hand and some heavy-weighted, boxing glove on the other hand. Like, then I'm gonna start to feel more intimidated. Not just because a large man was sitting next to me, but
I think
he also has that added elements of
right. It's not the natural
potential for.
I mean, but I was gonna make it sense. It's not the natural. He is physically said big, but at the same time, he's not naturally that big either. He put work and effort into being that big.
Yeah, some people are naturally that big.
He has a genetic predisposition to be that big. He is that tall because he's that tall,
right.
But he's not that big, and he can't bench press what he can bench press just because he goes out there and works at it, and that's how he makes it. But again, my point is like I feel like that, and I think you put it best, is that there's such a gray area to it, that like Rottweiler scared the shit out of me.
I mean, it comes down to, that's kind of like good and bad thing of the legal system. It literally comes down to interpretation. for the court system, it comes down to interpretation of the law, jury's interpretation of the facts of that case. It could go either way.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just don't.
That's kind of the beauty of it, is you can you trying to put that trust in people looking at the nuances of an exact situation.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do.
That are going to be there's always going to be different circumstances around different events that happen.
I mean, it goes to my stupid dog thing. Like, this is, like, to me, like, it offends me. It doesn't threaten me per se. But part of the reason it offends me is because I know I've known people who have a particular just fear for whatever reason. They had a problem when they were a kid or whatever. Like, the fucking dog people nowadays drive me fucking crazy. I can't go into a grocery store and not see a fucking dog in the grocery store.
Oh, I fucking hate that.
It drives me fucking crazy. It's like,
I hate it more. I think it's more of an inconsideration of like other people.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there are people that have real fear of dogs. They got bit as a kid and they can't get over it. Like, Rottweilers.
Fear. I think it's
it's
not
gross.
too common. I mean, the people that have allergies to pet dander.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, well, I wanted to go to Home Depot and let my dog walk off on the leash. I don't want to leave it in the car. It's like, I appreciate that you didn't just leave your dog in a crate somewhere at home.
Right, and I'm glad.
And
I'm glad that if this is actually a medical,
right.
This is a service dog of some sort because you have an anxiety issue and the dog helps you with your anxiety. I'm glad that dog helps you with your anxiety, but
right.
your anxiety doesn't trump everybody else's comfort either.
Right.
That's not a fair trade.
There's a difference between a trained dog like that. That's
even if it is a trained dog, and the fucking,
like pulling,
but it's,
like,
it's
I smell this, I smell that. What's that?
But it also falls under some of those stupid like HIPAA standard shit, is where you can't do anything as a business owner. You can't do anything. I can't ask you if that is a medical dog, because I'm asking you to disclose medical information on yourself, and you don't have to answer that question. I mean, I can ask you, but you don't have to answer.
All right, but I'd say a majority of people that literally have service dogs like have that special vest.
Max's dad
to denote that it is a service dog.
Max's dad went through the process with his old dog. Actually got the paperwork, so he could take his dog wherever he wanted to take his dog. No training is required to get the paperwork.
Right.
You just have to do the paperwork, get the whatever, got the thing, got the vest. That dog dies of age, whatever. Nothing, no bad. It didn't die from some stupid reason or anything. But that dog passes. He gets a new dog. Not even close to the same dog. Different type of mutt, like different combination of dogs, mutt thing. And just says, you know what? I'm going to name that dog the same as the old dog. So the paperwork still matches up. And so now he takes his new dog everywhere. Because it's the thing. As does Max, for that matter. He's got his little shit, whatever zoo thing certified. But he went through the paperwork process for that specific dog. But it's just like it just drives me crazy. Like, especially in a grocery store, in a restaurant. It's like, this is food that people eat.
Right.
Yeah,
I watch regular business. Yeah, they even get into the restaurants. That's one thing that pissed me off even more. It's like, okay, if you know that place has a patio and your dog's going to stay out there on the patio with you.
Right.
Not quite as acceptable, but I mean, the business has that option, and most businesses are cool with having your dog out there.
But it's just it. I at this point, at this new level of dogness that we have anymore, I don't think a business has the option. I think you're kind of like, I don't want the dog in here, but it's not worth the potential problem of me saying, no, you can't have your dog in here. Because if I get the wrong person, like 9 out of 10 people are going to be like, okay, that's fine. I understand. I'll take my dog back somewhere else, or we'll go somewhere else. Don't worry about it.
Right.
But you get that one person who is the right person to pitch a fit about it, and it's millions, not millions, but a significant amount of money in legal issues, or it's a big fucking stink and they go and make a big whatever, they refuse my thing.
I don't think they would have a leg to stand on if they tried to bring litigation to you.
I mean, if they have the, I don't know how the legals would work on it if they have to produce if they would then have to produce documentation that says the dog is required and X, Y, and Z. But I think
I think even if they had that, I don't think there's a requirement that you have to provide access.
I mean, I think it would go under like, I think it would
like
fall under like
ADA,
like, yeah. The American Disabilities thing is, it's like you have to have a wheelchair ramp to have a business open to the public. You have to have the bars on the sides of the toilet, the stall. You have to have at least one stall in each bathroom that is got a door that's this big and this actual stall has to be a certain size so a wheelchair can fit in it.
Right.
Like all those things are part of it, and I think there are people whose dogs are part of the things. You know, at least old school it was only blind people, but anymore it's changed to there's so many people that are allowed to have their dogs as an ADA assistant.
Right.
And you find the wrong person, and it's a significant liability for a business. I don't like it. I hate it when somebody brings a fucking dog in one of our stores, including when Max does, and Max's dad for that matter.
Yeah, one of the guys who used to work for us, I think his girlfriend at the time had like a really big, like long-haired white dog, and I came in a couple times and it was just fucking like dog hair all over the floor. I'm like, man, this shit's gonna be everywhere.
Yeah. We had we got on to Max's dad about his dog kept pissing everywhere. Like we would just go piss on the floor somewhere. It's like, dude, I don't want to my staff are not they're not hired to clean up after dogs. It's not what they do. It's not their job.
So I think it was in the past couple days. I saw some lady pulling a dog, and it was almost like some of the new luggage that kind of like stands up and has 4 wheels on the bottom, so you can kind of like pull it with a string. It was almost like that, but it was like this clear, like plastic, kind of like hemisphere over top of the dog. But it was like this kind of like rolling, like a little dog cart that had a little small kind of toy dog that was inside of it.
Some HEPA filters and some whatevers.
No, she was just pulling like I guess she'd just come out of a business, but had this like
It'd be nice. I'm just saying it'd be nice.
dog on this kind of like rolling, like little see-through carrier. I kind of was like, what the fuck is that?
Heard an interesting thing on dogs is the top of the food chain that is the human being is an endurance question. There's no animal on the planet. The only animals on the planet that can out-endure a human being, we've domesticated. All right, last phone call of the night. We'll close on this one. Jesse, my friend, how's it going?
Hey, Seth, how are you?
Hanging in, man. We've been at it for a long time and have nothing.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it.
I mean, we got the AP called Governor Lee at like 8:05.
Yeah.
But outside of that, we've been just sitting around kind of twiddling our thumbs. The poor live broadcast has been really boring because it ended up being more of like a normal show just because me and Sam talking, which is fine. I have no complaints about it other than, you know, to me, like the whole goal of tonight was for me to go, see, I was right. See, I was right. I was right there. I was right on that one.
Well, the people at the Democratic Party left basically.
Uh-oh. Well, you broke up, friend. Hold on a sec. Let you get through the tunnel.
Not saying
Hold on,
Greg
time out.
Kaplan's gonna win.
You went out as soon as you said the Democratic Party said basically, and your phone went out.
Oh no, we're being censored. They're pretty confident Gloria Johnson's going to win based on numbers they've seen, and they do not believe Greg Kaplan's going to win, but they think he's going to have a respectable showing, basically. And those were the only 2 races that were at all up in the air, I think.
Well, so then according to you via the Democrats, I'm right on everything. I was right across the board. I thought just because of the weirdness of 90 and some of the shit going on that Paz had a smidge of a chance to upset 90, and then inversely I thought Kaplan had a chance with the cat bike thing and stuff like that, but that at the end of the day I thought
Right.
Davis was going to take it and I thought Gloria was going to keep it.
Yeah, and that appears to be, now again, like we don't have numbers yet, so we will see, but that seems to be what everybody's expecting to happen, and I've talked to Scott, who's over with the Republicans, and that's basically what they're anticipating as well. Well, I don't know about they haven't said anything about the Johnson race, but they're anticipating Elaine Davis winning.
Yeah, so I think the only real question that's really at play is, do you think that on the amendments we hit the threshold enough that any of those are going to pass?
Yeah, and that I have no idea.
Okay.
I do know that a lot of people were very confused by them. I had people calling, emailing, and texting me over the last few days, just like trying to figure out what they were about. And when people don't understand things, they're more likely to leave it blank. And if they get too many people leaving it blank, then they're not going to pass.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think any of them will fail because of some organized opposition to them, but they theoretically could fail just from not enough people voting.
Right. That was my prediction on it, was that they would not pass the threshold of the 50% plus one of the yeses. I think one is there's no way, even if they get enough total or whatever. I think one had enough actual opposition that one wasn't going to pass regardless. But I think 2, 3, and 4 just aren't going to get the numbers, especially 2.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely possible.
I think the 2 was too damn long.
Well, and it's funny that the kinds of things I heard from some people about 2 were like, well, I don't want the Secretary of State in charge of the state or whatever. And, the process laid out there is it's essentially the same process as if the governor dies.
Right.
So a lot of what's in there is what we already have. It's just kind of covering the contingency of a long-term disability. So if it doesn't pass, then we're still going to be,
the only state that doesn't have a
stuck
plan.
in that situation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I guess to me, I think it makes sense to me. If we're gonna do an amendment, it needs to be complicated. It needs to be hard. It doesn't complicated may not be the right word, but it needs to be hard. It shouldn't be something we easily willy-nilly throw in and out.
Like, well, it doesn't say this particularly.
Right. And so I think it should be something that has a high threshold to bear. I just think they've got to figure out a way to get it more simplified on the ballot to make it understandable to people so they can say yes or no in a reasonable amount of time before they just say screw it and I'm skipping it.
Yeah, and what you really need is not just what the thing means, but why is this on here? Like a little paragraph saying, like with number 2, a little paragraph saying, well, here's the deal. We're the only state that doesn't have a plan for what happens if our governor ends up in a coma.
Right.
That would have helped a lot, but there's nothing like that on there.
Right, and in the whole page they couldn't sneak a little paragraph in about why it's important.
Right.
But I mean, I could see, but at adversity, I guess I could see how that could be very politicized.
Well, yeah, you have to be careful how we saw that with our own county charter amendment proposal where the law department wrote it in a way clearly designed to torpedo it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, the wording of these things is really important.
Because on that, I'll tell you, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong on that one back in what was that, 2020? Was that the 20 election?
Yeah.
I was absolutely
2 years
wrong.
ago.
My take on it was I want to vote on everybody, and in hindsight, no, I think that one needs to be in a appointed position. I think that's a mistake the way we do it.
Well, given the disfavor that the county law department has fallen into with most of our county commission, school board, all of them have been fighting with the law department. I think a lot of people have second thoughts about that these days.
Yeah. Well, I would say, oh snap! Just now, they have updated the election commission just updated the site.
Oh, did we have early vote numbers now?
It says 90 of 103 precincts reported. 87.38% of the vote is in.
Oh, so they just dumped them all at once?
Yeah.
Okay.
Constant.
Well, they must have been waiting to get them all back. Is the only thing I can figure.
All right. Let me see if I can pull up the other one. I know you're driving, so you're gonna have to hear it from me.
Yeah. And also, I'm approaching a Taco Bell here, so
Ooh.
I'm going to drop the call when I get up to the Taco Bell
Fair enough.
order window.
Constance got 21 absentee, 387 early, and 420. Go Constance, 420 on election day. Constitutional. All right, so not in Knox County at least, 117, 176 on the governor's race. Amendment 1 only had 115,000 total. 75 yeses, 75,000 plus yeses on Amendment 1. So at least inside county, it is cross threshold.
Yeah, that would do it for sure.
Amendment 2, 83,000 yeses. That crosses threshold. Number 3, 94,000. That crosses threshold. Number 4, only 60, or just under 70, which still crosses threshold. So in county, at least, everything is cross threshold on the 4 amendments.
Yeah, they would all pass.
Yep. Which that sucks for one, but that's an opinion on my part. Burchett's got a 20-point win. McNally, who's by himself, doesn't matter. Briggs has got a 15-point win. Zachary's got a 30-point win. McKenzie has a 50-point win. Go figure. Carringer has a 1,000-point win. Lane Davis, 54-45, so a 9-pointer for Davis at 18. Dave Wright, 74-21-3. Lafferty, 65-34. 90, 41-58. So I don't know what the history of the Glorious Old District was, but what is that?
I'll have
17
to check,
points.
but I feel like that's not too far from what she won 2 years ago in the old district. She was somewhere between 55 and 60, I believe.
Right.
But I'll have to go back and look.
All right, let me see if WBIR updated theirs real quick because they have the statewide version of it. Amendments, governor's race, state. They only have 25% reporting, 1.319 million. 1.31, so just under 700,000. So statewide, 2 and 4 are way under threshold. 3 and 1 are pretty close to threshold in yeses. Pretty close, but only 52% reporting now. It's just updated. But their one is 681,000 yeses on one, and there is 1.3 million, so they're under threshold by about 50,000 votes.
Yeah.
So, well, that was exciting. I think we're going to close the show on that.
Well, I'm gonna get some tacos.
Get you that
So,
tacos and get right, and I'll look forward to the newsletter in the morning.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Jesse, I'll see you later.
Bye.
All right, thanks, friend. Cool. That timed out really well. That all popped up real fast. We could have done an hour ago. We would have had more to talk about now, but
Yeah, I was trying to see if the AP had called anything yet, but
that's very interesting. I mean,
There's one thing I read, like
it's close.
I sent you that one article of like why the AP, and I don't know if you got a chance to look at that.
I did not get to read it. Break it down for me.
For a little I remember of reading the article. It's been
forgot.
a couple weeks since I did. But apparently they started doing it was somewhere in like the mid to late 1800s. It was like a Jason Zachary race was like the first one that the Associated Press called for.
Mhm.
And they kind of basically said, kind of like half jokingly, they're like, we did it because no one else was doing it. And they've just kind of like done it ever since. But they've been, I guess, some of the people that have compiled it, they of course get their numbers from actual, election precincts and secretaries of state and whatnot.
Right.
But they've always made a point to not call a race until it actually gets down to the point where there is
Right. I think one of the things to keep in mind,
chance of it flipping.
One of the things to keep in mind too is that I think as Matt explained to me a couple of years ago, I think is that it's one of those is that on the ground in person there is if there is somebody, because it's AP, they've got reporters all over the place that are part of the game, and if there's somebody on the ground, they can get that initial report from the precinct before it gets to the election commission, which it's public knowledge kind of thing. Everybody knows that if you go stand there, like the way I understood it from the way Matt described it is that like if I would have walked over to the precinct at 9:00 after the polls had closed, after that last person went through, and if I stood around and hung out with the workers as they were cleaning up and doing their thing, they could have pulled that report of the day. And so, and especially old school, when you're talking about they were sitting, they put all the pieces of paper in the box, and now those people are pulling the papers out of the box and counting them. If you have a reporter that's standing there with them while they're counting them, because it's supposed to be open to view the counting process, and you have a person sitting there and they report back to the mothership of AP, and you have a bunch of those doing it all at the same time, and somebody at AP taking them and taking notes, and it gets to the point where it's like, well, we got all these different places reporting. Boom. Here's the result. Now, yes, we have more details to come out. We have more specific numbers. We have more of this. We have more of that to come out. But all indications say that this is what's happening, because we have people on the ground at all the different parts and places. Because that's essentially what both parties do. They have people that are
People trying to do exit polls.
party members that are hanging out waiting for that precinct report live as the precinct puts it up.
Right.
So, I don't know. Got any last things you want to talk about? Anything like? I'm a little surprised. I mean, it looks like a couple of the amendments might actually get through, and number one being the worst of it. I'm really bummed if that one passes. One sucks. I'm actually really surprised. I'll be really surprised if one passes.
It may just be one of those weird amendments where people just thought that one thing was telling them this.
Well, I mean, it's worded well. It's and the libertarian in me would agree with the premise of one, because
Is that the right to vote one?
that's the right to work one.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah, the way it's written, it says that the state of Tennessee will never allow an employer to require you to join a union. Because to me, I think I agree with that premise, because that's forcing you to do something, and I'm not a fan of forcing you to do anything. But I don't think that's a constitutional level thing.
And I also think like we talked before, I think as the law stands now, I don't think
Nothing changes.
that you can necessarily fire someone based upon it.
No. Yeah, it's nothing.
So-
All four amendments, nothing changes. 2 is the only one that actually changes anything.
It's more so codifying.
Right. It changes the level. It changes how hard it is to change in the future. That's the thing about number 1 to me.
Right.
Is all it's doing is changing how hard it is to change it in the future. It's already in place. It just makes it really hard to change it again. And I think that's inappropriate. That's my take on it.
We shall see.
So let's do one more refresh and we'll call it a night. We're showing 90 of 103. I think it's fair. Yes. I mean, AP called Bill Lee for fuck ever ago, so that one doesn't matter. We'll let this thing scroll through. We'll call these last couple of races.
I wonder what the W's are with
Write-ins.
drawn maybe.
Write-ins.
Write-in.
I'm one of the ones for LaMichael Wilson. 0. Well, when they get the write-ins in place. Yeah, LaMichael Wilson twice. You see him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one.
2 different spellings.
Well, there's only one person that early voted for him,
Question
or
is-
absentee voted for him.
Question is, did you spell his name correctly or did the other person?
It's the day of write-ins will be a couple days before they show up.
Oh, okay.
All right, so in Knox County at least, Amendment 1 got 75,615, and that is enough to cross threshold. Let me start this fucker. Whatever. Number 2 in Knox County at least, and it should because Massey was the master of this one. Knox County got 83,000 plus in number 2 yeses. Number 3 yeses. Well, that's the one that says we're going to take the word or the exception for slavery out. So there is no more slavery at any means. Number 4 is 70,000, which crosses the threshold for county at least. Yes, we are taking the idea of clergy not being able to run out. So a clergy member can now legally run, even though they could anyway. Burchett keeps number 2 in Knox County. Well, yeah, that's all Knox County. So, yeah, Burchett is keeping 2 officially. McNally is keeping Senate 5 officially. I'm officially calling these like the AP does. Briggs keeps Senate 7 I invite anybody in 7 to call him and tell him to chill the fuck out on weed and weed-related things. TN House 14. Zachary keeps it even though he hates your kids. Mackenzie keeps 15. Excuse me.
Surprise, Carringer keeps her seat.
Yeah, Carringer, unopposed, keeps her seat. What's up, Keith? Shout out. Keith's watching the show. Anyway, Carringer keeps her seat. Elaine Davis wins that seat, 11,000 to 9,200. So, percentage-wise, Kaplan did okay. Did better than Couch did against Manis, but not by much. We'll see exactly how that breaks down once it's all done. Dave Wright, I'm pretty sure keeps 19. I don't know.
Looks like it.
I mean, he's keeping it, but I don't know if he's incumbent. That was the I don't know part.
Gotcha.
Lafferty keeps his seat, and it looks like, oh my God, really? Yeah, it looks like Gloria's going to keep her seat, but it's only 14,000. That doesn't seem like much. Yeah, 8,000 to 5,900. I mean, Gloria. I mean, and again, I think the important takeaway, like the real important takeaway, when you look at these numbers, to me, the important takeaway is that in Knox County, at least, early and absentee is indifferent from day of. So if we would have gotten early and absentee immediately,
on a couple of them that I was looking at.
like if we would have gotten early and absentee immediately, I would have called all those races. I think that is accurate for Knox County at least. Is early and absentee is there's no preference by party or anything like that. People in Knox County vote early, vote day of. It's the same animal. So I think that's the show, dude. You got anything else?
Not specific.
All right, well, bye to our
Bye, Keith.
our YouTube things. Keith, thanks for hanging out with us among other people. But Keith, thanks for commenting. We'll talk to you soon. Outro.